And so we settle in. You can feel your body beginning to grow heavy in the most pleasant way. In our time together tonight, there is nothing to examine, nothing to understand, only the gentle rhythm of a story. A story about what happens when the mind wakes up just a little too soon, or the body a little too late. A story about a feeling that has terrified humans for all time, and the strange and frightening names we give the darkness. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. And if you feel so inclined, you can let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and what time it is in your quiet corner of the world. It's a comfort to know we are all listening together, under different stars. Alright, let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing, and together, let's allow the story to begin. The first thing you're aware of is the cold. It's a damp, persistent chill that seems to seep up from the very earth beneath the cottage. Your blanket is a coarse, heady wool, smelling faintly of flannel and wood smoke, but it's no match for the deep cold of a moonless night. You're lying on a pallet stuffed with straw. Some nights, you can feel the individual stalks poking you in the back. Tonight, it just feels like a lumpy, unforgiving slab. This is your bed. This is your home. The fire in the central hearth died hours ago, when the village bell rang fork of reminders FEU. The fire minus covering. A sensible rule. Really, to stop an entire village of timber and thatch houses from going up in smoke because someone dozed off. But it means the nights are profoundly dark and profoundly cold. The only sound is the wind worrying the wooden shutters, making a low, mournful whistle. You are awake, or you think you are. Your eyes are open. You can see the faint outline of the roof beams above you, disappearing into a darkness so complete it feels solid, but something is wrong. You try to shift your weight, to pull the scratchy blanket higher up your chin, and you can't. Your arm doesn't respond. You try to wiggle your toes, buried somewhere in the cold depths of the bed. Nothing. It's as if the connection between your thoughts and your limbs has been severed. A flutter of panic, light as a moth's wing, brushes against your mind. You try to take a deep breath to calm it, but your chest feels tight, constricted. Your breathing is shallow, rapid, out of your control. The panic is no longer a moth. It's a frantic bird, beating its wings inside your ribs. You are fully, terribly awake, yet your body remains a stone effigy. This is where the real fear begins to creep in. From the edges of the room, historians and anthropologists still debate just how much the common medieval person lived in a state of perpetual, conscious fear of the supernatural. Was it a constant, nagging anxiety? Or was it more like background noise, a set of beliefs that only came to the forefront in moments of crisis? For you, right now, it's not a debate, it's the only possible explanation. The wind outside no longer sounds like wind. It sounds like a whisper, forming words you can't quite understand. The normal shadows in the corner of your small, one-room home seem to be gathering, coalescing. You try to call out for your mother, sleeping on a similar pallet across the hearth, for anyone, but your jaw is locked. Your tongue a leaden weight in your mouth. All you can manage is a faint, strained hum deep in your throat, a sound that is swallowed by the oppressive silence. Your eyes dart around the room, the only part of you that still obeys. The clay pot stacked near the hearth, the dark, looming shape of your father's wood minus axe, trapped against the wall. And then, something else. In the corner, where the darkness is deepest, there is a shape. It's a patch of night that is somehow darker than the rest. An absence of light so profound it seems to have its own form. It's vague, humanoid, but indistinct. You tell yourself it's a trick of the eye, a phantom painted by your tired, terrified mind. It's just the loom, with a blanket thrown over it. That's all it is. But then, the shape seems to leave. It detaches itself from the corner of the room with a fluid motion that is utterly wrong, utterly unnatural. It doesn't have feet. It seems to glide over the packed minus earth floor without a sound. The air in the room grows heavy, thick, like water. A smell hits you, not of smoke or wool, but of cold stone and damp. Freshly turned earth. The feeling of dread is no longer just in your mind. It's a physical presence, a pressure change in the air that you feel on your skin. It is moving, slowly, silently, from the corner of the room, and it is moving towards your bed, and you can do nothing but lie there, frozen, watching it come. The shape drifts closer. Your mind is screaming. A silent, internal shriek of pure terror. You're trying to rationalize, to find all landmark in this sea of fear. It's a dream. It must be a dream. You've had nightmares before. Fleeting images of falling or being chased that evaporate with the morning light. But this feels different. This feels real. The cold in the room seems to emanate from the thing. A wave of icy dread that washes over you, making your skin prickle and the fine hairs on your arms stand on end. You can feel it, just as you can feel the scratchy wall of the blanket. You lie pinned to the straw pallet, a prisoner in your own bones. Your eyes, widened and blinking, are fixed on the formless shadow. As it comes to the foot of your bed, it seems to resolve, just slightly. It's tall, taller than any man in the village. So tall its head seems to brush the dark thatch of the ceiling. It has no face, no discernible features, just a shifting, roiling darkness contained within a vaguely human outline. It is utterly, profoundly silent. Then, a new sensation, a pressure. It begins at your feet, a heavy, crushing weight, as if a large stone has been laid across your ankles. You didn't see it move, but the pressure is undeniable. It's a dead, inert weight, but it's real. The terror spikes, sharp and acidic in the back of your throat. You try again to move, to buck, to kick, to do anything. But your limbs are clay. They will not obey. You are nothing but a pair of terrified eyes and a frantic, trapped mind. The weight begins to move up your legs. It's not a sliding feeling. It's more like the thing is flowing. A thick, viscous liquid of shadow pouring itself over you. The pressure intensifies as it covers your shins, your knees. It's not painful. Not yet. But it's incredibly heavy. It's the feeling of being buried alive. Slowly, deliberately. You can feel the mattress compressing beneath you. The straw ushing in protest. When the weight reaches your stomach, your breathing, already shallow and panicked, becomes a desperate struggle. Each inhale is a battle against the immense, invisible mass. It feels like a grown man is kneeling on you, pressing all the air from your lungs. This specific feeling, the crushing pressure on the chest, is one of the most commonly reported elements of this experience across all cultures and all times. Later, science will give it a name. A hallucination triggered by the continued suppression of breathing that occurs during sleep. But for you, in this moment, there is no science. There is only a monster made of shadow, and it is suffocating you. And then come the whispers. They aren't coming from the shape itself, but from all around you, as if the very air in the room has begun to speak. They are sibilant and low. A chorus of voices speaking a language you don't know, yet somehow understand. They aren't threatening, not in a direct way. They are insinuating, coaxing. They speak of secrets, of desires, of the darkness that lies within the hearts of all people. They whisper your name. This is a detail that many who experience this phenomenon report. The auditory hallucinations. For some, it's a rushing or buzzing sound. For others, it's footsteps or voices. Historians of belief argue about how much these individual experiences were shaped by a pre-minus existing cultural narrative. Did you hear whispers because you were already taught that demons whisper temptations? Or is the whispering a run or a logical artifact that the culture then interprets as demonic? It's a chicken minus and minus egg question that no one can definitively answer. For you, The whispers are the voice of the thing that is crushing you. The weight settles fully on your chest, and the world narrows to a pinprick of grey light. Your heart is hammering against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the suffocating pressure. The air is thick, dull, smelling of something like spoiled meat and cold swamp mud. You are convinced you are dying. This is it. This is how it ends. Suffocated in your own bed by a faceless thing born of the night. You strain with every fibre of your being, not to move, but just to draw in a single, ragged gasp of air. The whispers are closer now, right beside your ear. They are no longer a chorus, but a single, dry, rasping voice. It's telling you to give in, to stop fighting, that the struggle is pointless, that this is your new reality, to be pinned and powerless. It's a voice of absolute despair, and for a moment, you almost believe it. The fight begins to drain out of you, replaced by a cold, terrifying resignation. The shape looms over you, a mountain of blackness, and you feel a strange, feathery touch against your cheek, as cold as a grave. The last of your strength is failing. You close your eyes, waiting for the end. Just as the last glimmer of consciousness begins to fade, just as you surrender to the crushing blackness, something snaps. It's not a sound you hear with your ears, but a feeling, deep inside your core. A primal, animalistic instinct to survive ignites. A final, defiant spark against the overwhelming dark. It's a surge of pure adrenaline, a biological imperative that screams live, with a force that seems to come from somewhere outside your own body. You wrench your head to the side. The movement is tiny, maybe only an inch, but it feels like tearing a tapestry in two. The connection, the horrible paralysis, shatters. A torrent of sensation floods your system. You can feel the rough weave of the blanket against your cheek, the cold air on your skin, the lumpy straw beneath your back. Your lungs convulse, and you drag in a huge, shuddering gasp of air that is so loud it sounds like a sob. It's glorious. It's painful. Your chest aches. Your throat is raw, but it's air, sweet, life-minus giving air. Your eyes fly open. The room is as it was. The pale grey square of the shuttered window, the dark shapes of the pots and the loom. The roof beams overhead. There is no looming figure. There is no weight on your chest. The suffocating pressure is gone, replaced by the phantom make of its memory. The whispers have vanished, leaving behind only the lonely whistle of the wind. But the terror remains. It's a physical residue, a cold sweater slicking your skin, a violent tremor in your limbs. You scramble backwards on your pallet, crab-minus walking until your back hits the cold, rough-minus plastered wall of the cottage. You pull your knees to your chest, wrapping your arms around them, trying to make yourself as small as possible. Your heart is still a wild drum against your ribs. You sit there, huddled and shivering, for how long you don't know. Every shadow is a monster. Every gust of wind is a whisper. You stare at the corner where it first appeared, expecting the darker minus than minus dark patch to reappear at any moment. But there's nothing. Just the familiar shape of the loom where your mother weaves the wool she spends her days spinning. Finally, a hoarse, rag sound tears itself from your throat. It starts as a whimper and builds into a cry, then a full minus-throated scream. It's a sound of pure, undiluted fear. Instantly, there's a rustling from the other side of the hearth. What is it? What's wrong? Your mother's voice, thick with sleep, cuts through the darkness. A moment later, there's a scraping sound, the flint and steel. A spark catches on the tinder, and a tiny flame flickers to life. Held in her hand, the moon, unsteady light of a tallow candle pushes back the oppressive darkness, making the shadows dance and retreat. She hurries to your side, her face a mask of concern in the wavering light. Child, you're white as a sheet. What happened? You can't speak. You can only point, your hand trembling violently, towards the corner of the room. It was there, You stammer, the words tumbling out. Amen. No, a shadow. It was on top of me. I cowed and breathed. Your mother holds the candle high, illuminating the loom, the basket of wool beside it. The rough, empty corner. There's nothing there. See, she says, her voice gentle, but with an edge of weariness. It was a nightmare. A mare of the night. The term she uses, mare, is an old one. It comes from an ancient belief in a goblin or spirit that rides on people's chests at night, causing bad dreams. It's a fascinating piece of linguistic history. The word nightmare itself has nothing to do with female horses. It's from this old concept of a nocturnal oppressor. For your mother, it's a simple, folk explanation for a bad dream, a way to categorize and dismiss the terror of the night. But her explanation doesn't comfort you. It was a dream. The weight was too real. The whispers were too clear. The cold was too deep. You shake your head, tears streaming down your face. No, it was real. It was right here. She sighs, a sound of maternal patience. She sits on the edge of your pallet and pulls the coarse blanket around your shaking shoulders. Hush now. The night plays tricks on the mind. A touch of indigestion from the pottage, perhaps, or a fever coming on. Say a prayer and try to sleep. The sun will be up soon. She doesn't believe you. You can see it in her eyes. She sees a frightened child, not a survivor of a horrifying attack. The loneliness of the experience crashes down on you. You were utterly alone when it happened, and you are, in a different way, just as alone now. You were the only one who saw the shadow, the only one who felt its weight. The experience was yours and yours alone. A secret horror locked inside your own mind and body. And that isolation, that lack of a shared reality, is a terror all its own. You lie back down, but you don't close your eyes. You stare into the flickering candlelight, waiting for the dawn, convinced that the shadow is still there, just out of sight, waiting for you to fall asleep. The first rooster crows long before the sun appears. Its call a ragged tear in the fabric of the night. It's the sound of morning, the sound of safety. Slowly, tentatively, the world outside your small cottage begins to wake. You hear the distant lowing of a cow, the clatter of a wooden bucket as a neighbor heads to the well. The sliver of sky visible through a crack in the shutters begins to soften from impenetrable black to a bruised, weary grey. You haven't slept a wink. You lie on your pallet, every muscle aching with a tension that has nothing to do with a hard day's labor. It's the physical aftermath of pure terror. Your body feels like a lute string that has been stretched to its breaking point and is still humming with a high, frantic note. Your mother is already up, moving about the cottage with the practiced economy of a life spent in this small space. She rekindles the fire in the hearth, her movements brisk and practical. The smell of wood smoke begins to fill the room, a familiar, comforting scent that does little to dispel the icy knot of fear in your stomach. She glances over at you, her expression a mixture of sympathy and mild impatience. Come now, up with you. The chickens won't feed themselves. You force yourself to sit up. The room, in the thin, grey light of dawn, looks utterly normal. The loom is just a loom. The corner is just a corner. The rational part of your mind tries to cling to your mother's explanation. It was a dream, a myth, a figment of an overtired mind. But the feeling, the memory of that suffocating weight is so vivid, so visceral. It feels more real than the solid earth floor beneath your feet. You pull on your simple woolen dress over your linen shift, your fingers clumsy and slow. You splash your face with icy water from the basin by the door. The cold shock of it helps, just a little, to chase away the lingering phantoms of the night. You eat your breakfast, a piece of hard, dark bread and a cup of weak ale, which is safer to drink than the water from the stream. In silence, you can feel your mother's eyes on you. She wants you to say you feel better, to admit it was just a silly dream. You can't. When you step outside, the morning air is crisp and cold. It smells of damp earth, livestock, and the smoke from a dozen other hearths. The village is stirring to life. It's a small, huddled collection of wattle and daub houses with thatched roofs, nestled in a shallow valley. The fields, fallow and brown for the winter, stretch out around it, and beyond them, the dark, imposing line of the forest. The forest is a place of resources, firewood, game, foraged herbs, but it's also a place of deep minus-seated fear, a place of woes, outlaws, and things far older and less natural. You walk through the muddy track that serves as the main village street. Chickens scatter from your path. A dog barks. These are the sounds of your life, the mundane backdrop to every day. But today, they sound different, brittle, fragile. It feels as if the ordinary world is a thin, flimsy veneer stretched over something dark and terrible. You pass the blacksmith's forge, the hour already shimmering with heat. The rhythmic clang minus clang of his hammer, a reassuring heartbeat in the center of the village. You see your neighbors, good wife Agnes, her back already bent as she carries the heavy buckets of water from the well. Old man Hemming, driving his single ox towards the fields. They nod to you, a simple morning greeting. You nod back, forcing a smile that feels like a grimace. Do they know? Can they see the terror clinging to you? Can they tell that you spent the night being crushed by a shadow? The thought is absurd, but it persists. You feel marked, different. This is a common psychological effect reported by those who have intense sleep paralysis episodes, a feeling of alienation in the sense that a fundamental boundary between the real and the unreal has been breached. They feel as if they've seen behind a curtain they weren't supposed to know existed. Historians often debate the true nature of community in the medieval village. Was it a warm, supportive network, a place where everyone helped each other in a spirit of Christian charity? Or was it a paranoid, gossipy fishbowl, where every deviation from the norm was noted, judged, then punished? The answer is likely both, depending on the circumstances. For you, this morning, it feels very much like the latter. Every glance feels like a judgment. Every shared whisper seems to be about you. You reach the small, fenced off pen behind your cottage and unlift the gate. The chickens cluck and swarm around your feet, expecting the handfuls of grain you scatter for them. As you go about the simple, repetitive task, your mind keeps replaying the night, the locked limbs, the pressure on your chest, the faceless shape. You try to push it away, to focus on the solid reality of the scratching chickens and the cold mud on your shoes. But the memory is a splinter, lodged deep, and every attempt to ignore it only makes it throb more painfully. You finish your chores, your movements stiff and robotic, feeling like a stranger in your own skin, in your own life. The sun is climbing higher, but for you, the night has not ended. It has only just begun. The market is the vibrant, chaotic heart of the village. It's held twice a week in the small, open square in front of the church, a space that is little more than a muddy clearing. But on market days, it transforms. Farmers from the surrounding lands bring their meager surplus. A few eggs, a comb of honey, a bundle of firewood. Traveling peddlers might appear, their mules laden with precious, exotic goods like salt, raw inputs, or brightly colored ribbons. It's a place of commerce. But more than that, it's a place of information. The market is the village's newspaper, its courthouse, and its stage. Your mother has sent you to trade a small basket of yarn. She has spun for a measure of flour from the miller's wife. It's a task you normally enjoy. You like the energy of the market, the huddling, the gossip, the chance to see faces from outside your immediate circle of neighbors. Today, however, the thought of it fills you with a quiet dread. Being in a crowd feels exposed. You pull your wool shawl tighter around your head and shoulders, trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. But the market is a small world. You can't avoid people as you navigate the throng. The familiar sounds and smells assault your senses. The sharp tang of goat cheese, The earthy smell of turnips. The loud, braying laugh of John the Fletcher arguing with a customer. It all feels heightened, almost overwhelming. You see a group of women clustered around the well, their heads close together. As you approach, their conversation drops to a sudden hush. They all look at you. Their expressions are neutral. Perhaps, but in your heightened state of anxiety, you read a world of meaning into their silence. They know someone must have heard your scream in the night. Your mother must have told someone. The story is out. This is the paranoia of a small, insular community. There are few secrets. It's a mechanism of social control. Of course, everyone knows everyone else's business, which enforces a certain code of conduct. But when you feel you have a dangerous, shameful secret, that same mechanism becomes an instrument of terror. You quickly pass the women, your eyes fixed on the ground, your heart thumping. You find the miller's wife at her stall, a large, flower-minus-dusted woman with a booming voice. "Ah, there you are, girl. Good yarn. This is. Your mother has a fine hand with the spindle." You manage a weak smile and make the trade, your hands fumbling with the small cloth bag of flour. You just want to finish your errand and flee back to the relative safety of your cottage. But as you turn to leave, you nearly collide with a man coming the other way. It's Thomas, a young man from a nearby fort. You've known him your whole life. He has always been kind, with a shy smile. "Watch yourself there," he says, his voice friendly, but his eyes linger on you for a moment too long. Is that concern in his gaze, or something else? Suspicion? Fear? You can't tell. Your mind has become an engine for the worst possible interpretations. It's a strange and debated aspect of social history how much of what we call superstition was genuine, deeply held belief, and how much was a tool for social maneuvering. When someone was accused of witchcraft, for example, how many of their accusers truly believed it? And how many were settling old scores or trying to explain away their own misfortunes? Historians like Keith Thomas have argued that these beliefs served a crucial function, providing explanations for a world that was often random and cruel. A cow dies, a child gets sick, a storm ruins the crops. It's easier to blame a malevolent to accept the terrifying caprice of nature. And you, today, are a deviation. You are a walking embodiment of something that doesn't fit. You screamed in the night. You look pale and frightened. In a world that craves order and explanation, you are an anomaly, and anomalies are dangerous. You hurry away from the miller's stall, touching your bag of flour. You keep your head down, but you can feel the glances, or you imagine you can. That's the insidious nature of it. You can no longer trust your own perceptions. The line between what is real and what your fear is projecting has become hopelessly blurred. You overhear a snippet of conversation. Two men are leaning against the wall of the church, talking about a sick cow, struck lame overnight. One of them is saying, "No mark on it, just lame." His friend shakes his head grimly and spits on the ground. "Bad business. There's a foul wind blowing through this village." They aren't talking about you. They can't be. And yet, in your mind, the two events connect. A sick cow, a girl who screams about shadows in the night. It's all part of the same foul wind. You are part of the bad business. You feel a chill that has nothing to do with the morning air. The fear is no longer just about what happened in your bed. It's about what will happen now, in the cold light of day. In the unforgiving court of public opinion that is the village market, you are no longer just a person. You are becoming a story. And you have a terrible feeling you will not like the ending. You flee the market, the small bag of flour clutched in your hand like a holy relic. The shouts and smells of the crowd seem to follow you, clinging to your clothes. You need to talk to someone, not your mother, with her practical dismissals. You need a friend. You need Elspeth. Elspeth is a few years older than you, already married to a cooperant with a baby swaddled at her hip. She lives at the far end of the village, near the stream. You find her where you expected to, standing knee minus deep in the frigid water, pounding her husband's linen shirts against a smooth, flat rock. It's back minus breaking work. But she greets you with a warm, genuine smile that makes the tight knot in your chest loosen just a fraction. You look like you've seen a ghost, she says, straightening up and wiping a stray strand of wet hair from her forehead with the back of her hand. Her simple, direct words are the only invitation you need. The story spills out of you in a torrent. A hushed, frantic whisper there by the gurgling stream. You tell her everything, about waking up, frozen, about the shadow that was darker than the dark. You describe the crushing weight, the desperate, silent struggle for breath. You even tell her about the whispers, the sibilant voices that spoke your name. As you speak, you watch her face, desperate for a flicker of understanding, of belief. Your half minus expecting her to laugh, or to give you the same weary platitude as your mother. But Elspeth doesn't laugh. She stops her washing, her hands going still in the icy water. She listens with a growing expression of horrified recognition. When you finish, the only sound is the water rushing over the stones. She pulls you by the arm out of the stream and onto the muddy bank, her grip surprisingly strong. Listen to me, she says, her voice slow and urgent. She glances around, ensuring no one is within earshot. What your mother told you about the mare. She's wrong. A mare is a mischievous thing, a pest. It gives you bad dreams, rides you hard so you wake up tired. But it doesn't whisper. It doesn't try to smother the soul in you. Her words land like stones in your stomach. She believes you. The relief is so profound it almost brings you to your knees. But it's followed by a new, colder wave of fear. She doesn't just believe you. She understands it within a framework that is far more terrifying than a simple nightmare. What you saw, she continues, her eyes wide. That was no simple night minus spirit. That was a fiend, a demon. The word hangs in the air between you. Demon. It's a word you've heard all your life from the priest in the church. A word whispered in stories told around the fire on long winter nights. It was always an abstract concept. A danger for other people, for sinners and the damned. It was not something you expected to find in your own bed. They are drawn to us, Elspeth says, her voice dropping even lower. Two women. They prey on us when we are most vulnerable. In the depths of our sleep, she leans in closer. Did you feel anything else? A touch, a strange warmth, or a piercing cold? You think of the feathery, grave minus cold touch on your cheek. You nod, unable to speak. Elspeth's face pales. You must protect yourself. Tonight. You cannot let it happen again. She starts giving you a series of rapid minus fire instructions. A litany of folk protection that has been passed down through generations. Take your father's sharpest knife, one with an iron blade, and place it under your straw pallet. They can't stand the touch of cold iron, and you must find some street. John's wort. Even the dried stalks from last summer will do. And hang it over the threshold of your door. It wards off evil. This is the kind of practical magic that coexists with formal religion, a layer of older beliefs that the church has never quite managed to stamp out. For every prayer, there is a charm. For every saint, there is a superstition. And when you sleep, she says, her grip on your arm tightening, you must not sleep on your stomach or your side. Lie on your back, with your arms crossed over your chest, like a corpse in a shroud. They say it confuses them. They will think you are already claimed by God and pass you by. You stand there, shivering by the stream, trying to absorb her words. In this moment, you don't know if her belief is a comfort or a curse. Historians still argue about the bonds of trust in a world where a whispered secret in the morning could become a shouted accusation by evening. By confiding in Elspeth, have you found an ally? Or have you just given your private horror a name and a shape, making it real not just for you, but for others? She gives your arm a final, reassuring squeeze. Be strong. And pray. Pray to the Virgin to protect you, but do not forget the iron. You walk back to your cottage, the bag of flour forgotten in your hand. The relief of being believed has evaporated, leaving behind a dreadful certainty. The shadow in your room was not a dream. It was not a figment of your imagination. It was, as NSB Wreath confirmed, a demon, and it chose you. The question is no longer what it was. The question is why, and that is a far more dangerous question to ask. The day crawls by with agonizing slowness. Every mundane task is layered with a new, unterrible significance. When you feed the chickens, you find yourself watching the sky, as if you could see the evil spirits gathering. When you help your mother knead the dough for the bread, the simple, rhythmic motion feels like a futile attempt to impose order on a world that has descended into chaos. You say nothing to her of your conversation with Elspeth. Her practical, earth-bound mind would have no room for such fantasies, and you fear her scorn more than her disbelief. You wait until your father is out in the woodshed, sharpening his axe. With trembling hands, you take the small, sharp knife he uses for skinning rabbits and whittling wood. It's a simple tool. Its wooden handle worn smooth with use. Its iron blade dark and pitted. It feels cold and solid in your hand. A small piece of tangible reality in a world that has gone mad. You slip it under the straw of your pallet, positioning it right where your back will be. You feel a small, almost imperceptible sense of relief. A sliver of iron against a mountain of shadow. It's not much, but it's something. As evening approaches, the dread returns, a physical presence in the room. The setting sun casts long, distorted shadows that seem to claw at the walls of the cottage. The evening meal of bread and pottage tastes like ash in your mouth. You watch your parents, their faces illuminated by the flickering firelight, their conversation revolving around the simple, predictable things of their life, the price of grain, the health of a neighbor's cow, the coming winter. You feel a profound and painful distance from them, as if you are separated by a veil of glass. They live in a world where the greatest fear is a bad harvest. You now live in a world where the night itself is a predator. When the village bell tolls for the covering of the fire, the sound is like a death knell. Your mother banks the embers with practiced efficiency, and the comforting light of the hearth shrinks to a dull, red glow before being covered with a clay lid. The profound darkness rushes in to fill the space. You lie down on your pallet. You can feel the hard shape of the knife beneath the straw. It's a small, cold comfort, following Elspeth's advice. You lie stiffly on your back, your arms crossed over your chest like an effigy on a tomb. It's an unnatural, uncomfortable position. Every instinct screams at you to curl onto your side, to seek the familiar comfort of your usual sleeping posture. But the fear is stronger than the discomfort. You lie there, rigid, your eyes wide open, staring into the impenetrable blackness. You listen. The sound of your own breathing is loud in the silence. The familiar creaks and groans of the cottage settling are no longer benign. They are footsteps, whispers, movements in the dark. Your heart hammers against your ribs. Sleep, when it finally comes, is not a gentle slide into unconsciousness. It's a fall. You plummet into a heavy, dreamless state, dragged down by sheer exhaustion. And then, you are awake. The feeling is instantaneous and horribly familiar. The calm, the silence, the leaden weight in your limbs. It's back. The iron knife beneath you offers no protection. Your carefully crossed arms are frozen in place. Your eyes are open, staring at the ceiling. The paralysis is total. A wave of despair washes over you. You did everything right. The iron, the posture, the prayers you whispered until your throat was raw. None of it worked. The thing has come back for you. This time, there is no slow, creeping dread. The presence is already there, not in the corner, but right beside you. You can't turn your head to see it, but you feel its proximity. The air beside your bed is unnaturally cold. A pocket of absolute zero in the chilly room, and the pressure starts immediately, not on your feet this time, but directly on your chest. It's faster, more confident, more aggressive. It knows you. The weight is immense, a solid, crushing force that drives the air from your lungs in a silent whoosh. You gasp, but no sound comes out. Your chest cannot expand. Panic, absolute and overwhelming, claws at you. This is worse than before. Before, there was a sense of discovery, of horrifying novelty. Now, there is only the terror of a known and inescapable torment. The whispers begin again, but they are different now. Not a chorus from the corners of the room, but a single voice, hissing directly into your ear. And the words are no longer just temptations. They are accusations. It whispers of your secret vanities. The small moments of pride you felt when you caught your reflection in a puddle and thought you looked pretty. It whispers of the flicker of envy you felt for Elspeth's happy marriage. It takes every small, human imperfection and twists it into a mortal sin. A reason you deserve this. A reason you were chosen. This is a cruelly effective feature of the experience. What modern psychology might call an intrusive thought loop, where the panicked mind turns on itself. But for you, it is the demon's voice, turning your own soul against you. It is mining your own memories for weapons. And then, a new horror. A sensation that was not there before. Underneath the crushing weight, underneath the icy cold, there is a different feeling. A repulsive, violating intimacy. It feels like the shadow was not just on you, but seeping into you, its cold essence merging with your flesh. It's a profound defilement, a trespass that goes beyond the physical. The line between your body and the monstrous presence begins to blur. You are no longer just being held down. You are being claimed. The experience has shifted from one of terrifying oppression to one of unspeakable violation. You lie there, pinned and breathless, as the shadow-minus thing whispers your sins into your ear. Its cold presence invading the very core of your being. The nightmare hasn't just returned. It has escalated, and in the silent, screaming darkness of your mind, a single, terrible thought crystallizes. This is not just happening to you. This is happening because of you. The second time you wake up screaming, it's different. The terror is deeper, sharper, but it's laced with a new and poisonous thread. Shame. When your mother rushes to your side with a candle, her face is no longer just concerned. There's a flicker of something else in her eyes. Fear. But not fear for you. Fear of you. In the morning, the silence in the cottage is a heavy, suffocating blanket. Your father doesn't meet your eyes. He eats his bread quickly and leaves. His disapproval a palpable force in the small room. Your mother's movements are stiff, her face set in a grim, tight line. She didn't ask what happened. She doesn't need to. 2 nights in a row. This is no longer a simple nightmare or a bout of indigestion. This is a pattern, and in a world that thrives on patterns, this one is sinister. When you step outside, the change is undeniable. The village is no longer a collection of neighbors. It's a gallery of judging eyes. The women at the well fall silent as you approach. But this time they don't even pretend to be talking about something else. They simply stop and stare, their faces hard. One of them makes a small, almost imperceptible sign with her hands. A gesture to ward off evil. It's aimed at you. A child, no older than 5, is playing in the mud with a stick. As you walk past, his mother darts out of her doorway, scoops him up, and hurries back inside, shutting the door with a loud thud. The rejection is so sudden, so absolute, it feels like a physical blow. Your private terror, the secret horror that happened within the confines of your own body and mind, has broken containment. It is now a public spectacle. The gossip, which you only suspected before, is now open and venomous. You don't have to overhear it. You can feel it. It's in the way people turn their backs as you approach, the way they pull their children away, the way they whisper behind their hands. Your name is on every owner's lips, linked with shadows and screams and things that should not be. You are the girl who cries out in the night, the girl who is visited. This is how social exclusion begins, not with a formal accusation, but with 1,000 tiny cuts, averted eyes, abrupt silences, closed doors. It's a process of othering, of separating someone from the fold of the community. Historians debate the speed at which this could happen. Could a reputation be destroyed overnight? In a small, superstitious, and frightened community, the answer is a terrifying yes. A life of conformity and good standing could be undone by a single, unexplainable event. You try to go about your chores, your head held high, pretending not to notice, but it's impossible. The air is thick with suspicion. You feel a desperate need to defend yourself, to explain, but what could you say? It's not my fault a shadow is trying to suffocate me. In their eyes, the fact that it's happening to you is proof enough of your complicity. A good, pious girl would not be singled out by a demon. The logic is simple, brutal, and inescapable. The victim is the cause. You see Elspeth near the churchyard, and for a moment, a surge of hope lifts your spirits. But Eloy, you start to walk towards her, a desperate plea for comfort on your lips, but she sees you coming. Her face tightens. She gives a tiny shake of her head, a look of panicked warning in her eyes, and quickly turns away, busying herself with a loose thread on her shawl. Even she is afraid to be seen with you now. Your friendship is a liability she cannot afford. The sting of that betrayal is sharper than any of the villagers' stares. You are truly, completely alone. The world you knew is shrinking. The familiar paths of the village are now a gauntlet of fear and accusation. Your own home, once a sanctuary, feels like a cage where you await a nightly tormentor. Your own body, which you have inhabited your entire life, feels like a stranger, a vessel that attracts some unspeakable evil. This feeling, the body as a source of shame and danger, is a powerful and destructive one. Modern understanding of somatization shows how psychological distress can manifest in physical ways. But in your world, the cause and effect are reversed. The physical manifestation, the paralysis, the breathlessness, is not the result of distress. It is the cause of it. It's the proof of a spiritual stain. As the sun begins to set, casting its long, orange light over the village, a knot of villagers has gathered in the square. They are not talking or laughing as they normally would. They are standing in a tight, grim minus-faced cluster, and they are all looking towards your cottage. Among them, you see your father, his face ashen, and at the center of the group, his black robes a stark symbol of authority, is the village priest. They are talking about you. The time for whispers and averted gazes is over. Your private nightmare has now become an official matter. The priest does not come to your door. He sends for you. Your father brings the summons, his voice low and strained, his eyes avoiding yours. Father Michael wishes to speak with you. At the church. No, the command is absolute. There is no question of refusal. You walk to the church with your father beside you, a silent, grim minus-faced guard. The small group of villagers in the square parts to let you pass. Their faces a mixture of fear, morbid curiosity, and righteous condemnation. You feel like a lamb being led to slaughter. The heavy oak door of the church groans open, and you step from the fading evening light into the cool, incense minus scented darkness within. The church is the largest, most permanent building in the village. Its stone walls and high, vaulted ceiling are designed to inspire on a sense of smallness. And tonight, it works perfectly. A few tallow candles flicker on the altar, their small flames throwing huge, dancing shadows up the walls. It feels like stepping into a different world, a world of judgment in divine power. Father Michael is waiting for you near the baptismal font. He is a tall, gaunt man with a perpetually worried expression. He is not, by nature, a cruel man. He is a shepherd who believes, with every fiber of his being, that his flock is beset by wolves. and he is convinced he has just found one. "My child," he begins, his voice echoing slightly in the stone chamber. He does not ask you to sit. You stand before him, your head bowed. "Your father has told me of your troubles, your night terrors." You nod, your throat too tight to speak. "Tell me what happens," he commands. His tone is not that of a compassionate counselor seeking to understand your fear. It is the tone of a physician diagnosing a deadly disease. Haltingly, you recount the story for the third time. The paralysis, the wait, the whispers, the second visit. More aggressive, more violating than the first. You leave out the more intimate, shameful details, but he seems to fill in the blanks himself, nodding grimly as you speak. When you finish, he is silent for a long moment, his fingers steep lead before his lips. He looks not at you, but at the crucifix hanging on the wall behind the altar. "This is not a May," he says, his voice low and certain, echoing Elspeth's words, but with the crushing weight of divine authority. "This is not a fever dream. What you are describing is a textbook case, a classic presentation of a spiritual sickness." He takes a step closer, his dark eyes boring into you. "You are being visited, my child, but not by a simple spirit. You are being visited by a demon of the most insidious and perilous kind. You are being visited by an incubus." The word, spoken in the hallowed silence of the church, has a terrifying power. Incubus. It's a Latin word, a scholar's word. It means to lie upon. It sounds ancient, official, and utterly damning. "These are fallen angels," Father Michael explains, his voice taking on a lecturing, catechist's icy tone. "Spirits who burn with a cold fire, consumed by a lust for the purity of mortals. They roam the night, seeking souls that are receptive. They are drawn to weaknesses, to vanity, to loneliness, to hidden dissatisfactions with one's lot in life." Every word is a subtle accusation. He is no longer describing a demon. He is describing you. Your supposed flaws are the bait that lured the monster. "The incubus comes to a woman in her sleep," he continues, his gaze intense. "It presses down upon her, stealing her breath, rendering her helpless. This is to break her will, to make her compliant. It whispers to her, using her own secret thoughts against her, to confuse her, to make her believe she desires the visit. And then, it has its way with her, a foul and sterile congress that defiles the body and stains the soul. You stare at him, horrified. He has taken your personal, terrifying experience and slotted it neatly into a pre-minus existing theological narrative. Every detail you provided, which you thought was unique to your horror, has become a piece of evidence, a symptom confirming his diagnosis. The paralysis, the suffocation, the whispers, they're all part of the demon's well-minus known method of operation. This is a critical moment. Your subjective experience is being officially translated into objective proof. The very real neurological and psychological phenomena of sleep paralysis are being systematically branded as the actions of a supernatural entity. Historians of science and religion point to these moments as the place where personal tragedy becomes prosecutable heresy. "Why you whisper?" The rather small, desperate plea. "Why me?" Father Michael's expression hardens. The flicker of pastoral concern is gone, replaced by the grim certainty of a judge. "That is the question, is it not? These creatures do not choose their victims at random. A prey's heart, a soul fortified by parent humility, is a fortress they cannot breach. They seek out the cracks, the weaknesses, aid or left unlet through sin." He looks at you, and you feel your very soul being weighed and found wanting. The implication is clear and unavoidable. The incubus did not attack you. It was invited. Your own spiritual failings, your secret sins, your very nature as a woman. These are the things that called the demon to your bed. You are not the victim of a monstrous assault. You are its accomplice. He takes a deep breath. "We will pray. We will attempt a purification of your whole. But I must be clear, my child. If the demon has found purchase in you, if a compact, willing or not, has been made, stronger measures will be required. The unspoken threat hangs in the air, more terrifying than any shadow. Stronger measures. You don't know exactly what that means, but you know it involves men more powerful and far less compassionate than Father Michael. You leave the church, the priest's words echoing in your mind. You have been given a diagnosis, and the diagnosis is a death sentence. You walk back to your cottage under a sky full of indifferent stars. The word Incubus cycles endlessly in your mind. It's a foreign, scholarly term, but Father Michael has filled it with a terrifying, immediate reality. It's no longer just a shadow in your room. It now has a name, a history, a motive. It has been categorized, and in being categorized, it has become horribly real. So, what exactly is this thing that has you in its grip? Let's take a moment, here in the quiet of your fear, to understand the creature that the priest has just named. The story of the Incubus is not some obscure local superstition. It is a deeply minus-rooted and terrifyingly sophisticated piece of Christian theology, debated and elaborated upon by the greatest minds of the Church for centuries. The belief in sleep minus visiting amorous spirits is ancient. Of course, the Greeks had their satyrs, the Romans their fauns. Jewish folklore spoke of Lilith, a female demon who preyed on men in their sleep, a story which would later evolve into the legend of Lilith. Nearly every culture has a version of this myth, a way to explain the unsettling combination of nocturnal paralysis and erotic dream minus states. But in the hands of medieval Christian theologians, it became something far more sinister and systematic. The great theologian, Saint Augustine, writing in the 5th century, spoke seriously of demons called Ducii by the Gauls, who are persistently trying for and achieving this impurity. He treated their existence not as a question of folklore, but as a matter of fact. By the 13th century, the master scholar Thomas Aquinas, one of the most influential thinkers in Western history, took the question even further. He wasn't debating if Incubi and their female counterparts, succubi, existed. He was working out the mechanics. Here's where it gets bizarrely specific. A kind of supernatural biology. Aquinas and his contemporaries were troubled by a theological problem: demons or spirits. They have no bodies, so how could they engage in physical congress with a human? They devised a chillingly logical solution: a single demon. They argued, could act as both succubus and incubus. First, it would visit a man in the form of a succubus, a beautiful woman, to collect his vital essence. Then, the same demon would instantly travel to a sleeping woman, morph into the male form of an incubus, and use what it had collected from the man. It's a grotesque and convoluted theory, but it solved several problems for them. It explained how a spirit could have a physical interaction. It also explained why the children of such unions, the so-minors called cambiones, were always monstrous or evil, as they were born not from a natural act, but from a demonic, second Midas hand transaction. This was just a scary story. This was P-minus reviewed, academic demonology. And what did an incubus feel like? The descriptions from medieval texts are eerily precise, and they map perfectly onto the symptoms of sleep paralysis. Writers described the victim feeling an immense weight on their chest, making it impossible to breathe or cry out. The 13th century Cistercian monk, Caesarius of Heisterbach, wrote of a man who felt a demon lie upon him with such a weight that he could neither move nor speak. This wasn't a metaphor. It was a diagnostic symptom. The cold you felt. That was also a key feature, while the act was described with the language of lust. The touch of the demon was said to be icy cold, like a corpse, because it was a spirit creature, lacking the natural heat of a living body. The violation you felt was also part of the doctrine. The act was never about pleasure for the human. It was about humiliation, defilement, and the harvesting of their spiritual energy. Historians are still in debate about the true function of this belief. Some, like the historian Walter Stevens, argue that the Incubus wasn't just about explaining sleep paralysis. It was about proving the very existence of the spirit world. In an age grappling with skepticism, the physical, tangible proof of a demonic attack, a paralyzed body, a feeling of suffocation, a story told by a terrified victim, was a powerful argument that the invisible world of angels and demons was real and actively intervening in human affairs. Your body, in its helpless state, was not just evidence of your sin. It was evidence for the entire cosmological order. So when Father Michael named the shadow in your room an incubus, he wasn't just grabbing for a scary word. He was deploying a complex, long minus standing, and academically minus supported theological weapon. He was placing your personal, neurological event into a grand narrative of cosmic warfare. The shadow is no longer a random phantom. It is a soldier of Satan, a specific type of demonic entity with a known methodology and a clear motive. And you are its target. Understanding this doesn't make you feel safer. It makes you feel impossibly, terrifyingly important in a battle you have no hope of winning. So you have a diagnosis, an incubus. But a diagnosis is useless without symptoms. And this is where the trap begins to close around you with chilling precision. The signs of a demonic lover, the proof that the priest in the village will now be looking for, are not external marks or strange behaviors. The proof is the very experience you are suffering from. Your personal hell is about to become their public evidence. Let's break down the list of symptoms. The supposed telltale signs of Congress with an incubus, as understood by a man like Father Michael. And as we do, you'll notice a horrifying 1-to-1 correlation with a classic sleep paralysis episode. First and foremost is the paralysis itself. This was considered the demon's opening move, its signature. Theologians called it ligature, a binding of the limbs and the tongue. Why? For the practical purpose of preventing the victim from resisting or calling for help. But it also had a symbolic meaning. It represented the soul being bound by sin, rendered helpless before temptation. So when you tell the priest, "I can't move, I can't scream," you are not describing a neurological state. You are confessing to the first stage of a demonic assault. Your symptom is their evidence. Next, the feeling of suffocation, the crushing weight on your chest. This was known as the oppressio. It was the most commonly reported and most feared part of the encounter. For the theologians, this was the demon asserting its physical dominance, literally pressing the life out of you to make you submit. For you, it was a terrifying hallucination caused by your brain waking up while your body's respiratory system was still in sleep mode. But, in the courtroom of medieval opinion, your desperate gasps for air are proof of the demon's physical presence. Checkbox 2 is ticked. Then come the hallucinations, the visual sighting of a shadowy, indistinct figure. Demons, it was taught, were masters of illusion. They could appear as handsome men, but their true form was often revealed in the darkness as something monstrous or ill-defined. A being of condensed air, as one writer put it. Your brain, in its half-waking state, is trying to make sense of the darkness and your terror, so it conjures a shape. You describe a formless shadow, and they nod knowingly. That is how they look before they have fully taken hold. The auditory hallucinations, the whispers, the rushing sounds, the sibilant voices, were also a classic sign. Demons were temptress. They mimicked the voice of God in the Garden of Eden, twisting words, sowing doubt, and exploiting your deepest insecurities. When you confess to hearing whispers that named your secret vanities, you are confirming the demon's textbook methodology. It knows your sins because it is the author of them. The intrusive thoughts of your terrified mind are recorded as a verbatim transcript of a conversation with a fiend. Even the location and timing are evidence. The attacks happen at night. In your bed, this was considered the devil's time. The night was a spiritual wilderness, a time when the forces of darkness were most powerful and human defenses were at their lowest. The bed, a place of potential procreation, was a symbolic battleground. So the fact that this happens while you sleep doesn't make it a dream. It makes it a demonic intrusion at the most opportune moment. And then there's the emotional residue. You wake up feeling exhausted, violated, and filled with a profound sense of dread and shame. To a modern therapist, this is a natural psychological response to a traumatic parasomnia episode. To Father Michael, this is spiritual desolation. The state of the soul after it has been in contact with the unholy. Your exhaustion is not from lack of sleep. It's the life force having been drained from you by the demon. Your shame is not a reaction to a terrifying experience. It is the guilt of a sinner who has participated, wittingly or not, in a foul act. This is the perfect, inescapable trap. Every single aspect of your suffering becomes another nail in your coffin. There is no symptom you can describe that doesn't fit neatly into their pre-existing framework of belief. If you saw nothing, they say the demon was invisible. If you heard nothing, they say it communicated directly with your soul. If you fight back, it's a struggle against temptation. If you are too terrified to fight, it's proof of your submission. There is a long standing debate among historians about the sincerity of accusers in witch trials. Did they truly believe this elaborate system? Or was it a cynical tool for persecution? The terrifying answer is that for many, the system was completely, logically sound. It explained the world. It had internal consistency. The evidence of your paralysis and your fear was, to them, as solid and irrefutable as the evidence of a bloody knife at a murder scene. Your body has become the scene of a crime, and it is telling a story that will condemn you. And the worst part is, you have no other story to offer. You only have the terror. And the terror, it turns out, is the confession. The name Father Michael whispered in the church, Incubus, was the diagnosis. The list of your symptoms was the evidence. But to move from a village problem to an official case, the priest needed a manual, a set of instructions. He needed a guidebook for dealing with a spiritual sickness like yours. And in the late 15th century, a terrifyingly effective one had been written. He may not have owned a copy himself. Books are rare and precious, but its ideas, its brutal logic, had filtered down through the clergy, poisoning the very air you breathe. The book was called the Meluis Maleficima. In Latin, it means the hammer of witches. Let's take a moment to understand this dreadful book, because its shadow is about to fall over your life. Published in 1487 by a German clergyman and inquisitor named Heinrich Kramer, the Meluis Maleficima was, to put it bluntly, one of the most dangerous and misogynistic books ever written. It wasn't the first book about witchcraft, but it was by far the most influential. It was a bestseller, second only to the Bible for a time, reprinted dozens of times across Europe. It was part theological treatise, part legal guide, and part lurid fantasy, and its primary purpose was to prove that witchcraft was not only real, but that it was a vast, organized conspiracy against Christendom, and that its primary practitioners were women. The book is structured in 3 parts. The first part is a long, dense argument dedicated to proving the existence and severity of witchcraft to any skeptics. It quotes the Bible, church fathers like Augustine and Aquinas, and philosophical arguments to build an ironclad case that to not believe in witches is, in itself, a form of heresy. It counters every argument with a counter-argument, creating a closed loop of logic that is impossible to escape. The second part is where it gets truly chilling. This section is a detailed catalogue of the types of witchcraft and the methods of witches. It's a litany of horrors. It describes how witches can cause impotence, spoil crops, kill livestock, raise hailstorms, and offer newborn infants to demons. And it spends an inordinate amount of time on the relationship between witches and demons, particularly incubi and succubi. For Heinrich Kramer, the author, the connection was absolute. He argued that the very initiation of a witch, the act that sealed her pact with the devil, was almost always a physical union with a demon. So your experience of being visited by an incubus is not just an isolated spiritual attack. In the logic of the Paralyzed, it's a sign that you are, or are on the verge of becoming, a full minus fledged, packed minus making witch. The book explicitly connects the dots between what you felt in your bed and the greatest crime imaginable. And this is where the book's infamous hatred of women comes to the forefront. Kramer goes to great lengths to explain why women are more susceptible to the temptations of witchcraft than men. He engages in twisted linguistic arguments, claiming the word femme in a woman comes from fe and minus faith and less, meaning one of lesser faith. He calls women more carnal, more impressionable, intellectually like children, and prone to vanity and malicious gossip. He writes, all witchcraft comes from carnal lust, which is in women insatiable. It's a hateful, sweeping condemnation that paints an entire gender as a theological fifth column, a weak point in humanity's defenses that the devil is naturally inclined to exploit. The third and final section of the Paralyzed is the most practical and the most terrifying. It is a step minus by minus step legal and procedural guide for secular and ecclesiastical courts on how to prosecute a witch. It covers everything: how to initiate a trial, how to interrogate witnesses, and how to handle a recalcitrant or silent defendant. And it gives official sanction to methods of interrogation that are designed not to find the truth, but to produce a confession. It advises trickery, false promises of mercy, and the use of psychological pressure. For example, it suggests having spies in the jail who will pretend to be friendly to the accused, hoping to coax a confession out of them in a moment of weakness. The influence of this book is a matter of intense historical debate. Some argue it was directly responsible for the surge in witch trials in the 16th and 17th centuries. Others claim its direct influence was more limited, and it was just one symptom of a wider panic. But what is undeniable is that the Malleus Maleficum gave a voice and a structure to pre-minus existing fears. It gave men like Father Michael a language and a logic to frame what was happening to you. It took the vague, terrifying chaos of your nocturnal paralysis and shaped it into a specific, prosecutable crime. You don't know the name of the book. You have never seen its pages, but its ideas are in the air. They are in the priest's questions, in the villager's fear, and in the hardening certainty that you are not just sick, but guilty. The hammer of witches was forged in a scholar's study hundreds of miles away, but its terrible, crushing weight is about to fall on you. Father Michael, armed with his certainty and the weight of theological tradition, decides on a course of action. It is the first, prescribed step in dealing with a potential demonic infestation, a purification of the home. It's a formal, ritualized attempt to drive out any evil influence that may be lingering in your cottage. It is, in essence, a minor exorcism of a place, rather than a person, and its failure will be yet another piece of evidence against you. He arrives the next evening, just as the sun is setting. He is not alone. He is accompanied by two nervous, sober-minus-faced men from the village, pillars of the community chosen to act as witnesses. Your father lets them in, his face a mask of grim resignation. Your mother stands by the hearth, wringing her hands, her eyes wide with fear. You are instructed to sit on a small stool in the center of the room, to be the focal point of the ritual. The witnesses stand by the door, their presence turning your home into a public courtroom. The priest is dressed in his formal vestments, a purple stole draped over his shoulders, the color of penitence. In one hand, he carries a small wooden bucket of water. In the other, he holds his prayer book. Aspergi esme. He begins to chant in Latin, his voice filling the small, smoky room. Aspergi esme. Domini. Hisappo. Et mundabi your lover bismi. Et super nivm dil baba. Thou shalt sprinkle me with hyssop, O Lord, and I shall be cleansed. Thou shalt wash me, and I shall be made whiter than snow. The Latin is a language of power, of mystery. You don't understand the words, but you understand their intent. This is a battle, and the priest is wielding the words of God as a weapon. He dips a small brush made of bundled twigs, a makeshift aspergillum, into the bucket of holy water and begins to walk the perimeter of the room. He flicks the water into the corners, onto the rolls, across the threshold of the door. Droplets of cold water land on the packed earth floor with a faint hiss. He sprinkles your parents, who bow their heads in reverence. He sprinkles the witnesses, who cross themselves. Then, he stands before you. He looks down at you, his eyes searching your face for any reaction. He sprinkles the water over your head. The cold drops run down your forehead and cheeks, mingling with the sweat of your fear. You flinch, not from any supernatural agony, but from the simple shock of the cold water. But in the charged atmosphere of the room, your simple, human reaction is interpreted as something more. You see one of the witnesses exchange a significant glance with the other. She flinched at the touch of holy water. The priest continues his prayers, his voice rising in volume and intensity. He calls upon the Archangel Michael to defend you in battle, to be your safeguard against the wickedness and snares of the devil. He commands any and all unclean spirits, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, to depart from this dwelling and from this servant of God. The whole ritual is a piece of theater, designed as much for the benefit of the community as for the supposed driving out of demons. It's a public demonstration that the church is taking action, that order is being restored. This is a common feature of religious rituals throughout history. They serve a social function, reinforcing community norms and demonstrating the power of the ruling authority. But there's a terrible catch-22 built into the process. If the ritual works, and your night terrors cease, then it is proof that there was a demon, and that you were indeed its host. The community might forgive you, but you will forever be marked as the girl who required a purification. You will be a walking testament to a battle that was fought in your name. And if it doesn't work, the priest finishes his prayers. He makes the sign of the cross over you one last time, his voice a low rumble. Vade retro, Satane. Get behind me, Satan. He closes his book with a decisive snap. The ritual is over. He gives your parents strict instructions. You are to spend the night in prayer, clutching a rosary. You are to think only pure thoughts. The witnesses leave, their faces grim. The priest departs, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Your parents do not speak to you. They simply point to your palate. The unspoken message is clear. This had better work. That night is the worst yet. You lie on your pallet, clutching the wooden beads of the rosary so tightly your knuckles are white. You do not sleep. You do not dare to. You stare into the darkness, your senses on a razor's edge, listening for any sound, watching for any shadow. The exhaustion is a physical pain, a weight behind your eyes. But as the deepest part of the night approaches, the familiar, dreadful symptoms begin to creep in. It starts with a ringing in your ears, then the feeling of cold, the slow, creeping paralysis that begins in your toes and works its way up your body. You fight it with every ounce of your will, whispering frantic, desperate prayers, but it's like trying to hold back the tide with your bare hands. The paralysis locks you down, the weight descends. The whispers come, mocking your prayers, twisting the holy words into obscenities. The presence this time is furious, enraged by the priest's intrusion. The violation is more profound, the terror more absolute. It feels like a punishment for having sought help. When you finally break free, gasping and sobbing in the pre-minus dawn grey, the truth is undeniable. The prayers didn't work. The holy water failed. The power of the church was useless against the thing that haunts you. And in the brutal logic of your world, there is only one possible explanation for this failure. It's a concept that historians of witchcraft trials see again and again. The demon could not be driven out because it was not just a visitor. It was there by invitation. It was there because, deep down, you did not want it to leave. The failure of the priest's prayers is not his failure. It is yours. It is the final, irrefutable proof of your guilt. The failure of the purification ritual changes everything. What was once a village matter a parish problem to be handled by the local priest, now escalates. Father Michael is a simple man, a shepherd for a rural flock. He knows of sin and redemption, of prayers and sacraments. He is out of his depth. The demon that plagues you is clearly too powerful, too deeply entrenched, for simple remedies. He is now faced with a possibility that terrifies him. He has a full minus-blown case of demonic collusion, a packed minus making witch, in his parish. And for a problem of that magnitude, he has to call in specialists. He sends a message, carried by a boy on a borrowed horse, to the nearest cathedral city, a journey of 2 days. The message is addressed to the bishop's office, but it is intended for a specific department within it, the Inquisition, or more accurately, the men appointed by the bishop to handle such delicate and dangerous matters of faith. The word Inquisition often conjures images of a single, monolithic, almighty powerful organization spanning Europe. The reality, as historians like Edward Peters have shown, was more complex. There were several Inquisitors, the medieval, the Spanish, the Roman, the Portuguese, each with its own jurisdiction and methods. In your part of the world, it is not a standing, formal code, but a commission, a task force. When a problem like you arises, the bishop appoints trained ecclesiastic to investigate, to act as both detectives and judges in matters of heresy. 2 weeks pass. For you, it is a period of dreadful limbo. The nightly terrors continue, a relentless, exhausting routine of fear and violation. The village shuns you completely. You are now a pariah, a leper. Your family treats you with a mixture of fear and resentment. You are the source of their shame, the cause of their disgrace. You are a prisoner in your own home, waiting. Then, one afternoon, they arrive. You see them from the small, grimy window of your cottage. 2 figures on horseback, riding slowly down the village's central track. They are not soldiers or merchants. They are priests, but of a different kind than Father Michael. They are dressed in the dark, severe robes of a monastic order, like the Dominicans, the Silminus called Hounds of the Lord, who were often tasked with rooting out heresy. Their faces, even from a distance, are grim and purposeful. They move with an unnerving confidence, an air of absolute authority. The entire village seems to hold its breath. People stop their work and stare. Doors creak open as people peer out. The arrival of the Inquisitors is a momentous, terrifying event. It's like the arrival of the hangman and the judge, rolled into one. They dismount in the square, their horses led away by a deferential Father Michael. He bows his head to them, no longer the authority figure, but a humble parish priest reporting to his superiors. The 2 men are a study in contrasts. One is older, thin and ascetic, with a face like carved wooden eyes that seem to see right through you. The other is younger, bulkier, with a stern, impatient set to his jaw. They are the classic pair, the scholar and the enforcer, the mind and the fist. They don't come to your cottage. That would be beneath them. Instead, they establish themselves in the small room attached to the church, the sacristy, transforming it into their headquarters, their courtroom. They will not be staying in the village. That might expose them to local sympathies or influences. They will ride in each day from a nearby monastery, maintaining a cold, professional distance. The arrival of these men signals a fundamental shift in your reality. Up until now, your fate has been in the hands of people who know you. Your parents, your neighbors, Elspeth, Father Michael. Their fear and suspicion were personal. But these men, they don't know you. You are not a person to them. You are a case file, a phenomenon to be investigated, a spiritual disease to be dissected and excised. This impersonal, bureaucratic nature of the inquisitorial process is one of its most terrifying aspects. It removed the crime from the realm of local squabbles and passions and placed it into a formal, legalistic framework. It gave the proceedings an aura of objectivity and inevitability. There is a long minor-standing historical debate about the Inquisitors themselves. Were they all sadistic, power-minded hungry monsters, as popular culture often portrays them, or were many of them sincere, dedicated, intelligent men who genuinely believed they were saving souls and protecting the world from a cosmic evil? The truth, as is often the case, is likely somewhere in the middle, somewhere undoubtedly cruel. But many, perhaps most, were simply men of their time, operating within a belief system that they saw as rational, just, and divinely ordained. They believed they were doctors of the soul, but their only cure was the fire. That evening, the summons comes, not from your father this time, but from one of the village men acting as a bailiff for the Inquisitors. You are to present yourself for questioning at the church first thing in the morning. The final thread of hope you might have been clinging to, that this would all somehow blow over, that people would forget, is severed. The machine of justice, or what passes for it, has arrived. It is slow, methodical, and relentless, and you are now caught in its gears. The next morning, you walk to the church again, but this time, it feels different. The path you walked with your father was a path of shame. This one is a path of pure, cold dread. Your mother doesn't even look at you as you leave. In her eyes, you are already lost. You are not leading to the main body of the church. The bailiff directs you to the small, damp sacristy at the side. The room is cramped and smells of old incense, beeswax, and damp stone. The two Inquisitors are seated behind a simple wooden table, which they have turned into a makeshift judge's bench. The older, ascetic one, whose name you learn is Brother Andreas, sits in the center. The younger, stocky one, Brother Mythology, sits to his right, a quill and ink pot at the ready. He is to be the scribe, the one who records every word. Father Michael stands nervously by the wall, a silent observer, his authority completely usurped. There is no chair for you. You are expected to stand. The room is deliberately arranged to maximize their authority and your vulnerability. It is a stage, and you are the star of a grim play. Brother Andreas looks at you, his gaze cold and dispassionate. It's not a look of anger or hatred. It's the look of a naturalist examining a strange and unpleasant insect. State your name, he says. His voice is dry, like rustling leaves. You tell him, your own voice a timid whisper in the stone room. We have been sent by the bishop. Brother Andreas continues, his tone flat and formal, to investigate reports of grave spiritual maladies in this parish. Father Michael has informed us of your afflictions. We are here to ascertain the nature of this illness and to offer you the mercy of the church. The word mercy sounds like a threat. This is not a trial, he says, a statement that is technically true but deeply misleading. This is an inquiry, an investigation. The trial may or may not follow, depending on what they uncover. This is an interview, a chance for you to unburden your soul, to speak the truth. The truth, however painful, is the only path to salvation. Deception, however, leads only to damnation. Do you understand? You nod mutely. He begins the questioning. It starts simply. Your age, your family, your daily routines. The questions are designed to put you at ease, to create a false sense of a normal conversation. But every answer is being weighed. Every hesitation noted by Brother Mythology, whose quill scratches across the parchment with a steady, relentless rhythm. Then, the questions shift. Do you attend Mass regularly? Do you know your prayers? Do you confess your sins to Father Michael with a full and contrite heart? This is the baseline. They are establishing your spiritual standing. Any failing here, a missed Mass, a forgotten prayer, is not just a minor lapse. It's a potential crack in your spiritual armor, an opening for demonic influence. Tell us about the disturbances. Brother Andreas says, his voice unchanging, from the beginning, omit nothing. For what feels like the 100th time, you tell the story, but this time is different. You are not speaking to a worried mother or a horrified friend or even a concerned local priest. You are speaking to experts. They listen with a focused, analytical intensity that is far more terrifying than any emotional reaction. They don't interrupt. They just let you speak. Their eyes never leaving your face. Brother Malachi's will is a constant, scratching counterpoint to your trembling voice. When you describe the paralysis, Brother Andreas holds up a hand. This inability to move. Did it feel as though you were being held by ropes? Or by a great weight? I wait, you whisper. Brother Malachi makes a note. And the voice you heard. The Inquisitor continues. Did it speak to you of worldly things? Of riches? Or of carnal matters? It spoke of my sins. You say, your voice cracking, my vanity. Another note is scratched onto the parchment. Your words are being fitted into their pre-minus existing categories, translated into their infernal language. Your experience is being systematically dismantled and reassembled into a confession. This is the core of the inquisitorial method. It was not, in theory, about torture and forced confessions from the outset. It was about careful, systematic, psychologically astute questioning designed to lead the accused into trapping themselves in their own testimony. Historians of law note that the Inquisition was one of the first legal systems to place a high value on the suspect's own confession, believing it to be the queen of proofs, but they developed brutally effective methods for extracting the confession. Brother Andreas leans forward slightly. This presence in your room, this incubus, when it lay upon you, did you feel a sense of terror and repulsion only? Or was there, perhaps, a flicker of something else? A dark pleasure, a sense of being chosen. The question is a stunning, horrifying trap. It plants a suggestion, a seed of an idea so vile you can barely comprehend it. You recoil as if struck. No, never. It was horrible. Your denial is vehement, passionate, but it is also, in their eyes, exactly what a guilty person would say. They are not looking for your truth. They are looking for their truth in your words. The very nature of the questioning is designed to corrupt your own memory of the event. They are trying to make you doubt your own experience, to wonder if maybe, deep down, there was some part of you that was not repulsed. The interview goes on for what feels like hours. They ask the same questions over and over, phrasing them slightly differently each time. Looking for inconsistencies. They are not here to rescue you from the monster in your room. They are here to prove that the monster came from inside you. Their mercy is not the mercy of a savior. It is the mercy of a surgeon who offers to amputate a limb to save the body from a sickness he is convinced you brought upon yourself. And you are beginning to realize that in their eyes. You are not the patient. You are the disease. After hours of relentless questioning, Father Andreas leans back. A flicker of something new in his dispassionate eyes. It's a look of grim satisfaction. He has heard enough. He has established the narrative. Now, he needs the physical proof. The devil is a proud spirit, he says, his voice taking on a professorial tone. When he takes a servant, he marks them as his own. A seal of ownership. A sign of the pact made between them. It is a mark of their eternal damnation. He is talking about the devil's mark, or the witch's mark. This was a cornerstone of witch minus hunting law, an idea that became horribly prevalent during the height of the panics. It was believed that during the initiation ceremony, the devil would brand the new witch by raking his claw across her skin or biting her, leaving a permanent mark. This mark was said to be insensitive to pain and would not bleed if pricked. We must search for this mark, Brother Andreas announces, his voice flat, as if he were discussing the weather. It is a necessary step in this inquiry, to confirm the nature of your association with this demon. A cold, sickening dread floods your body, a feeling worse than any paralysis. This is a violation of a different kind. The nightly terrors were an assault on your mind and spirit. This is to be an assault on your body, your privacy, your last shred of dignity. He gestures to the corner of the sacristy, where a figure has been waiting silently in the shadows. It is an older woman from the village, one you recognize but do not know well. Her name is Matilda. She's a widow, a severe, joyless woman known for her piety and her sharp tongue. She has been designated as the official searcher. The rules of the inquiry dictated that a woman should be the one to physically examine the accused. A thin veneer of propriety over a deeply intrusive procedure. You will go with good wife Matilda. Brother Andreas commands. You will remove your garments and allow her to conduct a thorough examination. You will not resist. Matilda steps forward, her face a stony mask. She takes your arm in a surprisingly strong grip and leads you from the sacristy into a small, adjoining room, little more than a storage closet, cold and windowless. She shuts the door, plunging you into near darkness, lit only by a single, sputtering candle she places on a wooden crate. Take them off, she says, her voice devoid of any warmth or sympathy. Tears stream down your face as you're fumbling. Trembling fingers work at the laces of your dress. You remove the coarse wool garment, then the linen shift beneath. You stand before her, completely exposed, shivering in the cold, damp air. The shame is a physical thing, a burning heat on your skin. Your body, the same body that has become a nightly prison, is now an object of clinical, hostile scrutiny. Matilda begins the search. Her hands are rough and cold. She runs them over your skin, her touch impersonal and probing. She is looking for anything unusual, a note, a birthmark, a scar, a skin tag. Any small imperfection of the flesh could be interpreted as the infamous mark. This is one of the most cruel and arbitrary aspects of the witch trials. The human body is rarely a perfect, unblemished canvas. Almost everyone has some small mark on their skin. In the context of a witch hunt, these normal variations became sinister signs. A debate rages among historians. Was the concept of the mark a deliberate, cynical tool to guarantee a conviction? Or was it a manifestation of a deep minus-seated fear of the body, particularly the female body, as something inherently strange and corruptible, whatever the reason? For you, in this cold, dark room, the distinction is meaningless. Matilda turns you around, examining your back, your legs. She lifts your arms, peering into your armpits. She makes you sit, so she can inspect the soles of your feet. Her silence is more terrifying than any accusation. Then, her probing fingers stop on your shoulder blade. You have a small, reddish brown mole there. You've had it your entire life. It's a part of you, as familiar as the color of your eyes. Aha, Matilda says, her voice a low, triumphant hiss. She leans in closer, the candlelight casting huge, distorted shadows on the wall. She takes something from a small pouch at her waist. It's a long, sharp pin. This was the test, the pricking. The searcher would poke the suspected mark with a pin. If the accused did not cry out in pain, or if the spot did not bleed, it was considered proof positive of a demonic seal. It was a test that was horribly easy to fake. A professional witch minus Spireker could use a retractable needle, a dull point, or simply be deft with sleight of hand to produce the desired result, especially if their pay depended on the number of witches they identified. Matilda holds the pin aloft. The large truth will be revealed, she mutters, more to herself than to you. You squeeze your eyes shut, bracing for the sharp sting. You feel the cold point of the pin against your skin, right on the mole. She presses. A sharp, burning pain lances through your shoulder. You cry out. A sharp, involuntary yelp. You feel a warm trickle of blood run down your back. For a single, wild moment, you feel a surge of hope. It hurt. It bled. It's not the mark. I'm innocent. Matilda pulls back. She looks at the pain, then at your bleeding shoulder. There is a flicker of disappointment in her eyes, but it's quickly replaced by a cunning look. She leads you back out into the sacristy, where the two inquisitors are waiting. You are still exposed, cutting your clothes to your chest in a futile attempt at modesty. Well, Brother Andreas asks. Matilda bows her head. There is a mark on her shoulder blade, a foul protuberance. She pauses, choosing her next words carefully. I pricked it. She cried out. It is true. And it bled. But she leans in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The devil is cunning. He can make a false mark bleed to deceive the faithful. Her cry was not one of true pain, but a clever performance to fool us. I am certain of it. And just like that, the truth is inverted. Your very human reaction, the proof of your innocence, is twisted into the ultimate proof of your guilt. Your pain is a lie. Your blood is a deception. You have failed the test by passing it. The trap is snapped shut, and there is no way out. You are allowed to dress, but the thin fabric of your clothes offers no comfort, no protection. The shame of the examination clings to you, a second skin of humiliation. You stand before the two inquisitors, shivering, as Matilda's damning words hang in the air. Your blood is a lie. Your pain is a performance. Brother Andreas nods slowly, accepting Matilda's interpretation without question. It fits the narrative he is constructing. A simple, innocent girl would have a simple, tear minus cut mark. A cunning, pact minus making which would have a mark that mimics reality. A demonic illusion designed to fool the righteous. Your innocence has become proof of your sophistication in the arts of deception. He gestures for you to stand before the table once more. Brother Malachi dips his quill in the inkpot, a fresh sheet of parchment before him. The interrogation is not over. It is entering a new, more dangerous phase. They have the physical proof. Now they need to align your story with it. Let us return to the nature of these visitations. Brother Andreas says, his voice taking on a new edge. It's less dispassionate, more predatory. He is no longer just investigating. He is building a case for prosecution. You have described a shadow, he says. They wait, whispers. Let us be more precise. When this incubus comes to you, does it announce itself? Does it speak its name? No, you whisper. It's just there. Of course. Brother Andreas says with a thin, knowing smile. They are shy at first, but they are demons of lust. They do not come merely to press upon you and whisper. That is just the preamble. You are omitting the conclusion of the act. We are patient men. We will hear it. He is no longer asking you what happened. He is telling you what happened and demanding that you confirm it. He begins to describe, in clinical, detached Latin terms, the theological understanding of demonic congress. He talks about the icy touch, the sterile violation, the act of homage the witch pays to her demonic master. He is painting a lurid, terrifying picture, and he is placing you at the center of it. He is feeding you the details of your own confession. You felt its presence not just upon you, but within you, did you not? He presses. A foul union, a sacrilegious merging. Is this not the truth you are hiding? You remember the feeling from the second night, the horrible sense of the shadow seeping into you, of being defiled from the inside out. It was a sensation born of pure psychological terror, the mind's reaction to a feeling of utter helplessness and violation. You nod weakly, tears blurring your vision. It did feel like that. Scribe, not a benner. Brother Andreas says sharply to the scribe. Let the record show. She admits to the demonic union. Scribe, note this well. The quill scratches furiously. Your failing, your subjective horror, has been recorded as a factual event. You have just confessed to the central crime. This technique of leading and shaping a testimony was fundamental to the inquisitorial process. They were not permitted, in theory, to invent a confession from whole cloth, but they were masters at guiding a terrified, confused suspect into giving them the answers they wanted to hear. They would offer multiple minus choice questions where every answer was an admission of guilt. They would twist a vague feeling into a specific, damnable act. And after this act is completed, the Inquisitor continues, his voice relentless. Does the demon then depart? Or does it speak with you? Do you make plans? Does it instruct you? Does it tell you of the power it can grant you? The power to sell milk, to lame our neighbor's cow, to harm a child. He is linking your personal trauma to every misfortune in the village. The sick cow the men were talking about at the market. A baby that cried all through the night. A batch of soured cream. He is weaving your secret horror into a grand conspiracy of malevolence, with you as the local agent of chaos. You shake your head frantically. No, it's not like that. I would never. And yet, Brother Andreas cuts in smoothly. Goodman Hemming's prize ox went lame the morning after your first screaming fit. And good wife Agnes complains her milk has been sour for a fortnight. These things do not happen by chance. The devil's work leaves a trail. The circular logic is dizzying, suffocating. You are trapped. Your terror is proof of demonic visitation. The demonic visitation is proof you are a witch. Your status as a witch is proof that you are responsible for the village's misfortunes. Every step of the argument is built on the one before it, a towering edifice of condemnation built on the flimsy foundation of a neurological event. Historians still debate the psychology of confession in these trials. Why did so many, even without physical torment, end up confessing to these impossible crimes? The answer is complex. It involves immense psychological pressure, exhaustion, confusion, and the internalisation of the accuser's worldview, after hours of being told the same story, of having your own reality denied and replaced with a more powerful, authoritative one. You begin to doubt yourself. The lines blur. Your memory, already frayed by trauma and lack of sleep, becomes unreliable. Their story, so confident and detailed, begins to feel more real than your own confused recollections. You look at the faces of the Inquisitors, calm, certain, implacable. You look at Father Michael, his face a mask of horrified belief. You think of the villagers' stares, of meticulous triumphantis. Everyone believes this story. Everyone accepts you. And your own voice is a tiny, wavering whisper against a hurricane of certainty. Your body, with its supposed mark, has already testified against you. Now, your own words, twisted and reframed, are becoming your final accuser. As your testimony is twisted and your body's own marks are used against you, the inquirer moves into even more treacherous territory. Brother Andreas has established the physical proof the mark and extracted a guided confession, the demonic union. But there is one more piece of evidence he needs. A type of proof that is both powerful and deeply controversial. Even in his own time, he needs to validate the core of your experience, the vision of the shadow itself. He leans forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, almost scholarly tone. Let us speak of the apparition. You saw this demon with your own eyes, did you not? In your own room, a shape of darkness, a formless man. You nod, because it's true, in the midst of the paralysis. You saw it. It was as real to your senses as the table in front of you is now. This is what we call spectral evidence. He explains, as if lecturing a student, testimony about things seen in the spirit world, a vision of a spectre, a phantom, an apparition. He looks at you intently, and in your vision, this spectre, this demon, it was this creature that tormented you, that pressed upon you, that spoke to you. Again, you can only nod. That is exactly what happened. In your terrified, half-mindless waking state, you attributed all the physical sensations of the paralysis, the pressure, the breathlessness, to the shadowy figure your mind had conjured. Then the case is clear. Brother Andreas says, sitting back with an air of finality, you have seen the spectre. You have felt its torment. The spectre's actions are the actions of the one it represents. You have been assaulted by a demon. This seems straightforward enough. But the use of spectral evidence was one of the most hotly debated legal and theological issues of the era of the witch hunts. The central question was this: if a victim testifies that they saw the spectre or apparition of a specific person, say, their neighbor, Goodwife Agnes, attacking them in a vision, is that valid proof that Goodwife Agnes herself is a witch? It's a philosophical minefield. On one side, many influential jurists and theologians, including, famously, the prosecutors in the Salem witch trials nearly 2 centuries later, argued that yes, it was valid evidence. Their logic was that the devil could not assume the shape of an innocent person to torment another. God would not allow such a profound deception. Therefore, if a victim saw the spectre of Goodwife Agnes, it was because Goodwife Agnes had made a pact with the devil and given him permission to use her likeness. The spectral vision was proof of the pact. But on the other side, a significant and vocal minority of thinkers raised a terrifying counter-minus argument. They argued that the devil was the prince of lies, the ultimate deceiver. What greater deception could there be than to frame an innocent person? They contended that the devil would assume the shape of a pious, innocent person precisely to sow chaos and cause the righteous to condemn one of their own. Under this interpretation, spectral evidence was worse than useless. It was a demonic trap designed to lead the courts into committing judicial murder. This debate raged for centuries. The Malleus Maleficarum was firmly in the first camp, arguing that such visions were reliable proof, but many other respected theologians urged extreme caution. They argued that no one should be condemned on the basis of a vision alone. In your case, the situation is slightly different, but the underlying principle is the same. You are not accusing a neighbor. You are the sole witness to a crime committed by a supernatural entity, but the validity of your vision is still paramount. Your entire case rests on the belief that what you saw was real and that its actions were as you described. Brother Andreas, like the author of the Malleus, is a firm believer in the reliability of spectral evidence. For him, your vision is not a hallucination, not a dream, not a trick of a terrified mind. It is a literal window into the spirit world. It is our witness testimony. Some would say, he muses, stapling his fingers, that the devil could create such a vision to deceive you. That what you saw was a mere phantasm. But the weight you felt, that was no phantasm. The words you heard were no illusion. The mark on your flesh is no dream. The spirit world and the physical world have intersected in your bedchamber. The spectre you saw was real. He has taken the most ephemeral part of your experience, the hazy, dream-like vision of a shadow, and declared it to be the most concrete and reliable piece of evidence. It's a stunning inversion of logic. Your hallucination is now the bedrock of their legal case. The tragedy of this is that you agree with them. You have no other framework to understand what happened. In a world without the concept of hypnagogy, hallucination, or the neuroscience of sleep, the most logical explanation is that you did see a real entity. You are a witness for your own prosecution. You and the inquisitors are in perfect agreement about the core fact. A spiritual being appeared in your room and attacked you. The only point of disagreement is why. You believe you are an innocent victim. They believe you are a willing participant. And all the evidence they have gathered, the failed purification, the mark on your shoulder, your guided confession, Gandel, the validation of your spectral vision, points to their conclusion. Your terror has been documented, analyzed, and officially certified as a crime scene. The interrogation is over. You are sent back to your cottage, but it is no longer your home. It is your cell. You are under a form of house arrest, guarded not by jailers, but by the fearful glances of your own family and the weight of the village's condemnation. The inquisitors now have everything they need. They have your testimony, shaped and guided to fit their narrative. They have the physical proof of the mark. They have validated your vision as reliable spectral evidence. Now, all that is left is to assemble these pieces into a final, unassailable argument. Let's step back from your personal terror for a moment and examine the cold, brutal logic that Brother Andreas is now employing. It is a perfect, closed loop of reasoning, a theological and legal construct from which there is no escape. It is designed not to discover truth, but to confirm a pre-minus existing assumption of guilt. The argument begins with the premise established by your spectral evidence. A demon, an incubus, visited you in your bed. This fact is now considered proven and is the foundation for everything that follows. From this premise, the first question arises: why did the demon choose you? As Father Michael had already explained, and as Brother Andreas profoundly believes, demons do not act randomly. They are like predators seeking the weakest animal in the herd, a soul that is strong in faith, tender and pure as a fortress. God, it was believed, would not allow a truly devout and innocent person to be subjected to such a violation. Therefore, the very fact that the demon was able to attack you is, in itself, proof that you were vulnerable. You possessed a pre-minus existing weakness. This is the doctrine of elective affinity. The demon chose you because there was something in you that was akin to it. What could that be? The Inquisitors have a checklist ready. Was it vanity? You admitted to moments of pride. Was it envy? You confessed to feeling jealous of a friend. Was it discontent with your humble station in life? What young, cruel peasant girl didn't dream of a better life? Beyond all human imperfections, the small, secret thoughts that everyone has are magnified into great spiritual flaws. They are the cracks in your soul's armor that are meant to enter. So, the first plank of the logic is set. You were chosen because you were already sinful. Now, the second question. Why did the demon's attacks continue and even escalate after the priest's purification ritual? This is a crucial point for the Inquisitors. A simple demonic harassment, an opportunistic attack on a weak soul, should have been repelled by the power of the Church, by the holy water, the prayers, the sign of the cross. The fact that these holy instruments failed is deeply significant. To them, there is only one logical explanation. The rites of the Church are a weapon. But a weapon can be rendered useless if the person it is meant to protect is secretly colluding with the enemy. The demon was not an external attacker who could be driven away. It was an invited guest. The purification failed because, on some level, consciously or unconsciously, you did not want it to succeed. Your will was aligned with the demon, not with God's. This is the second, and more damning, plank of the logic. The attacks continued because you were a willing participant, at least on a spiritual level. This leads directly to the third and final piece of the argument, which involves the physical evidence of the mark. The devil's mark was not just a brand of ownership. According to the theology of the Malleus Maleficum, it was the seal of a contract, a physical sign of a formal pact. The demon doesn't just torment you for sport. It wants something from you, your soul. And in return, it offers mut, terror, the secret knowledge to harm and to heal, the ability to affect the world in ways that are not permitted to ordinary mortals. Your guided confession, in which you agreed that the demon spoke to you of your neighbor's misfortunes, and the convenient timing of the lame ox and the sour milk, all point to this conclusion. You weren't just a passive plaything for the demon. You were entering into a business relationship. You were becoming a witch. The mark on your shoulder, therefore, is not just a sign of the demon's interest in you. It is the closing signature on a contract. This is the final, devastating plank. The physical mark proves that your spiritual collusion has been formalized into a pact. Look at the terrifying perfection of this structure. Your sinfulness explains the initial attack. Your complicity explains the failure of the prayers, and the pact explains the physical evidence. Each stage of the logic reinforces the others, creating an unbreakable circle of condemnation. There is a historical debate about whether this kind of elaborate logic was actually used in every local trial, or if it was reserved for the scholarly arguments of the Inquisitors. In many cases, accusations were probably far simpler, but the underlying assumptions, the core tenets of this logic, had seeped into the popular imagination. The villagers may not have been able to articulate it like Brother Andreas, but they understood the basic premise. Good people are not tormented by demons. If you are being tormented, you must have done something to deserve it. You are caught in this flawless, monstrous logic. There is no point at which you can introduce an alternative explanation. The idea that you are an innocent victim of a neurological disorder is not just an unproven theory in this world. It is an unthinkable one. It is a logical impossibility. The only story that makes sense. The only story that has any explanatory power within their worldview is the story of your guilt. The Inquisitor's investigation is complete. The logical framework of your guilt has been constructed. No. The final act of this grim theater must be performed. The trial. It is not a trial in any sense that a future world would recognize. There is no jury of your peers, no presumption of innocence, no lawyer to defend you. It is a formal presentation of the evidence of your guilt, a public ritual designed to ratify the conclusion that has already been reached. The trial is held in the church. The entire village is there. It is not a choice. Attendance is mandatory. They pack the wooden benches. Their faces a sea of pale, upturned circles in the gloom. It is a terrifying spectacle. These are the people you have known your entire life. You grew up with their children. You have broken bread at their tables. Now, they are here to witness your condemnation. Their collective presence is a crushing weight, a silent, unified judgment. You are made to stand alone in the open space before the chancel steps, facing the altar. Your back is to the village, but you can feel their hundreds of eyes on you. Behind the altar, seated at a table draped in black cloth, are your judges, Brother Andreas and Brother Malachi. Father Michael stands to the side, his face ashen, a reluctant participant in a process he started but can no longer control. Brother Andreas rises. His voice, dry and emotional, fills the cavernous space of the church. He does not speak to you. He speaks to the assembled villagers. He is not just trying a case. He is delivering a sermon. He is teaching a lesson. We are gathered here, he begins, in the sight of God, to confront a great evil that has taken root in this community. An evil that walks in darkness and whispers in the night. An evil that seeks to corrupt the innocent, to sour the milk, to lame the beast, and to steal the souls of the faithful. He pauses, letting his words hang in the silent, tense air. An inquiry has been conducted, according to the holy laws of the church. Testimony has been heard. Evidence has been weighed. A conclusion has been reached. He then begins to lay out the case against you. It is a masterful performance of rhetorical power. He presents the evidence not as a series of disjointed facts, but as a compelling, linear narrative. A story of a young woman's fall from grace. He starts with your own words. He reads from the parchment scroll prepared by Brother Malachi, a heavily edited, undoubtedly phrased version of your testimony. He speaks of how you admitted to being visited, to being paralyzed and suffocated. He quotes your description of the shadow, presenting your terrified vision as a clear minor-side account of a demonic encounter. Then he moves to your confession. She has admitted. He thunders, his voice resonating from the stone walls, to a foul and unnatural union with this creature of darkness. She has confessed that the demon whispered to her of her neighbor's misfortunes, revealing its evil intentions for this entire parish. Hilo memo runs through the crowd. You hear gasps of horror and fear. You're confused. Guided words have been weaponized, turned into a public confession of malevolent intent. Next, he brings forth the witnesses. First, your own father is called. He shuffles forward, his head bowed, his face etched with shame and fear. Brother Andreas asks him a single question. Did your daughter cry out in the night with a sound not of this world? Your father, his voice barely a whisper, mutters, yes. He is quickly dismissed. His testimony, though simple, is devastating. It confirms that the horror was real. Then, good wife Matilda is called. She walks to the front with a self-important stride. She describes, in lurid detail, the discovery of the foul protuberance on your shoulder. She recounts the pricking, her voice filled with righteous certainty as she explains how your cry of pain was a clever deception, a trick of the devil. Finally, he calls Goodman Hemming, the owner of the lame ox. The man testifies that his best animal was struck down with a mysterious ailment the very morning after your first night of screaming. He doesn't explicitly accuse you, but the implication, guided by the Inquisitor's questioning, is unmistakable. Your dark spiritual turmoil has spilled out into the physical world, blighting the community. This is a key part of the trial's social function. By linking your private torment to public misfortunes, the Inquisitors provide the village with a scapegoat. They offer a simple, powerful explanation for the random cruelties of life. It's not bad luck or disease that lamed the ox. It's her. It gives them a target for their fear and anxiety. It makes them feel that by purging you, they can restore order and safety to their world. The debate over the nature of these trials often circles back to this point. Were they primarily driven by elite theological concerns, or by popular, grassroots anxieties? The answer, as seen here, is that it was a terrifying synergy of both. The Inquisitors provided the sophistication, legal and theological framework, and the villagers provided the raw material of local gossip, fear, and suspicion. The two fed each other. Brother Andreas concludes his presentation. He has woven a tapestry of guilt from your words, your body, and your neighbor's fears. He turns to you, his eyes like chips of ice. You have heard the evidence against you, the testimony of witnesses, the confession from your own lips, the mark on your very flesh. The Church, in its mercy, offers you one final chance to save your soul, if not your body. Will you now make a full and free confession of your sins? Will you renounce the devil and the pact you have made with him? The Church is utterly silent. Every eye is on you. They are not waiting for a denial. A denial is pointless. They are waiting for the final, ritual act of submission. They are waiting for you to agree to the story they have written about your life. The silence in the Church is absolute. It's a physical weight, pressing down on you just as the shadow did in your bed. Hundreds of pairs of eyes are fixed on you, waiting. Brother Andreas' question hangs in the air, a demand disguised as an offer of mercy. Will you now make a full and free confession? Your mind is a maelstrom of terror, exhaustion, and confusion. A small, defiant part of you, the part that still remembers who you were before all this began, wants to scream no. It wants to shout that they are wrong, that you never made a pact, that you are the victim, not the criminal. But you look at the faces of the Inquisitors, cold and implacable as stone. You see the fear and condemnation in the eyes of your neighbors. You see your father's shame and your mother's despair. You remember the cold probe of meticulous spin and the twisting of your words on Brother Malocchi's parchment. What would happen if you said no? The Malleus Maleficima and other inquisitorial guides had a clear, prescribed path for a defendant who refused to confess, even in the face of overwhelming evidence. They would be declared obstinate and impenitent. This would lead to the application of further pressure. This could mean solitary confinement in a dark, cold cell. It could mean being subjected to a diet of affliction, bread and water only, to weaken the body and thus the will. And if that failed, it could mean the application of quast ire, the question, torture, while officially the Church frowned upon it. The inquisitorial process allowed for physical torment as a tool to encourage a confession, under the chillingly logical premise that a little pain on earth was preferable to eternal damnation for a soul that died with unconfessed sins. They wouldn't call it torture. They would call it a final, desperate attempt to save you. You look at the faces of Brother Andreas and Brother Malocchi. You have no doubt they would see it as their solemn duty to authorize such measures. To them, your refusal to confess would not be a sign of innocence, but of the devil's power over you, proof that he was giving you supernatural strength to resist the truth. Your defiance would only confirm your guilt in their eyes. And even if you could withstand the physical pain, what would be the result? You would still be found guilty, and unrepentant, which was considered the most dangerous kind. Your death would be assured, and your soul, they would tell you, would be damned for eternity. But they have offered you a different path, the path of confession. It is a lie, of course, this offer of a full and free confession. It is anything but free. It is a choice made at the end of a long, brutal campaign of psychological warfare. But it is, in its own twisted way, a kind of mercy. It's an exit. It's a way to make the pressure stop. This is a phenomenon that historians and psychologists studying coerced confessions have noted throughout history. After prolonged periods of intense stress, isolation, and gaslighting, a person's will to resist simply erodes. The path of least resistance becomes confession. Agreeing with your accusers brings a strange, distorted sense of relief. It ends the fight. It aligns your reality with theirs, ending the painful cognitive dissonance of being the only one who believes in your own innocence. And there is a sliver of hope, a carefully crafted illusion, attached to the confession. By confessing, you show that you are penitent. You are throwing yourself on the mercy of the court and the church. A penitent witch, one who renounces Satan and helps the authorities by naming her supposed accomplices, might, just might, be granted a morsel of mercy. Perhaps not freedom, but a length in a convent prison instead of a death sentence. Or perhaps a swifter, more merciful death by the sword rather than the prolonged agony of the fire. It's a small, desperate calculation made by a mind that has run out of options. You look at Brother Andreas, and a profound weariness settles over you, a fatigue so deep it extinguishes the last spark of defiance. You can't fight anymore. You can't tell your story again, only to have it twisted and used against you. It's easier, so much easier, to just give them what they want. Your shoulders slump. The fight goes out of you. You open your mouth, and the voice that comes out sounds distant, hollow, like it belongs to someone else. I confess, you whisper. The words are barely audible, but in the dead silence of the church, they ring out like a thunderclap. A collective sigh of relief and vindicated fear ripples through the crowd. They have their witch. They have their answer. Brother Andreas nods slowly, his expression unchanging. You confess to making a pact with the devil. Yes, you say, the word is flat. Dead thing. You confess to allowing the Incubus to have congress with you. Yes. You confess to using its power to harm the livestock and property of your neighbors. Every yes is a betrayal of yourself, but each one makes the next one easier. It's like stepping off a cliff. The first step is the hardest. After that, you are just falling. Yes, you say. Brother Malachiescu scratches away, recording the final act. Your free and full confession. Your surrender. You have now, by your own words, in the sight of God and your entire village, agreed to their version of your story. You have accepted the identity they have crafted for you. You are no longer the girl who was terrified of a shadow in her room. You are the witch who invited it in. The record is complete. Your fate is sealed. Your confession hangs in the air of the church, a final, suffocating shroud. The trial is over. The narrative is complete. You have played the part they wrote for you, and now the story moves to its inevitable conclusion. You are led from the church, not back to your home, but to a small, dark, and foul-minded smelling shed behind the churchyard that serves as the village's makeshift lock-minus-up. The door is bolted behind you. There is no window, only a few cracks in the wooden planks that let in slivers of grey light. You sink to the dirt floor. The exhaustion so profound it's like a physical illness. The adrenaline, the fear, the confusion, it all drains away, leaving you hollow. You are now a convicted witch. Your fate is in the hands of the inquisitors and the secular authorities to whom they will now deliver you for sentencing. Because, in a strange quirk of legal history, the Inquisition itself did not sentence people to death. They were a religious court. They could not shed blood, so after finding a heretic guilty and extracting a confession, They would relax the prisoner to the secular arm, the local lord or magistrate, with a recommendation for punishment. This recommendation was almost always followed. It was a neat bit of legal maneuvering that allowed the church to orchestrate the death penalty while keeping its own hands technically clean. In the darkness of your cell, you are trapped in a prison that is far more complex than the wooden shed around you. You are in a prison built of belief. Think of the layers of this prison. The first wall was built by your own mind. The terrifying, involuntary experience of sleep paralysis created a horror that you could not explain or control. The neurological misfire in your brain was the first stone laid. Your own biology betrayed you, creating a private hell. The second wall was built by your community. They shared culture, steeped in superstition and a deep minus-seated fear of the supernatural, provided the only available language to describe your experience. Elspeth's worried advice, the villagers' suspicious glances, your mother's fearful silence. They all took your private hell and made it a public reality. They gave the shadow a name and a motive. They took the unexplainable and made it the undeniable. The third wall was built by the authorities, by the intellectual and religious power of the church. Father Michael, with his diagnosis of an incubus, and the inquisitors, with their methodical and relentless logic, built a formal, legalistic structure around your fear. They brought the full weight of centuries of theological debate, books like the Malleus Maleficum, and the established procedures of the Inquisition to bear on you. They created a system, a perfect, inescapable circle of reasoning, that proved your guilt. They turned your medical symptoms into legal evidence. In the final wall of the prison, you built the yourself. Your confession, under immense psychological pressure, you agreed to their story. You validated their beliefs. You became the monster they told you that you were. You locked the door from the inside. This is a point that many historians, like Lyndall Roper, have explored in their studies of the witch trials. The confessions were not just extracted. They were, in a strange and tragic way, co-minus created. The accused, stripped of their own reality and fed a powerful, all-minus encompassing narrative, sometimes came to believe it themselves, or at the very least, they surrendered to it as the only path available. The line between what was done to them and what they confessed to doing became hopelessly blurred. Did they confess because they were tortured, or because they were so confused and exhausted that the confession seemed like the only logical end to the story? The debate is ongoing. You sit in the dark, and you no longer know what is real. Was it all just a dream? Or did a demon really come to you? Did you somehow, in some secret part of your heart, invite it? The Inquisitor's questions, their certainty, their intricate logic, it has all seeped into you, poisoning your own memory. They have successfully replaced your reality with theirs. This is the ultimate power of a belief system. It doesn't just explain the world, it creates it, for the people of your village. The world is now a safer, more understandable place. The random misfortunes have a cause, the nocturnal terrors have a name, and the source of the evil has been identified, judged, and contained. They can sleep more soundly tonight because you are locked in this shed. Your fate is sealed, whether it is a quick death or a slow one, a life in prison or an end in fire. Your story as a person is over. You are now a symbol. You are a cautionary tale whispered to children. You are a sermon illustration for Father Michael. You are a successful case study in a report that Brother Andreas will file with his bishop. You are a victory in the great cosmic war against Satan. You are all of these things. The only thing you are no longer is you. The girl who once lived in the little cottage, who fed the chickens and traded yarn at the market, has been completely erased, buried under the crushing weight of a story she did not write, but was forced to sign her name to. And here, in this cold, dark shed, we will leave you. Your story, the story of the medieval girl condemned by a nightmare, is over. Her fate is sealed by the beliefs of her time. But our story, the story of the phenomenon itself, is not. Let us now pull back the camera, leave the 15th century behind, and travel forward through time into a different world. A world of quiet laboratories, sterile hospitals, and the hum of complex machinery. A world that will eventually give your terror a new name. Let's find a name for the prison that your own body built. The name is sleep paralysis. It is a parasomnia, a disruptive sleep disorder that occurs in the transition between sleep and wakefulness. It happens when your brain and your body fall out of sync. Specifically, it involves a state called REM atonia, during the rapid eye movement REM stage of sleep, where most of our vivid dreaming occurs. Our brain sends a signal to our voluntary muscles, effectively paralyzing them. This is a brilliant evolutionary safety feature. It prevents you from physically acting out your dreams, from running off the bed while dreaming you're being chased, or punching your partner while dreaming you're in a fight. It keeps you safe. But sometimes, the timing gets scrambled. Your conscious mind can wake up before the REM atonia has worn off. The result is that you are mentally awakened, aware of your surroundings, but you are still physically paralyzed. You can open your eyes. You can breathe automatically, but you cannot move a muscle. You cannot speak. This mismatch between a waking mind and a sleeping body is the foundation of the entire terrifying experience. The crushing weight on your chest, the suffocating feeling, that has a biological explanation too. During the REM sleep, your breathing becomes shallow and is primarily controlled by the diaphragm. The accessory muscles in your chest that you use for taking deep breaths when you're awake are still inhibited. When you wake up paralyzed and terrified, your first instinct is to take a deep, gasping breath. But you can't. Your body is fighting against the natural suppression of REM sleep, creating a sensation of constriction, pressure, and suffocation. It feels like something is on top of you, because in a very real sense, your own biology is holding you down. And the hallucinations, the shadow in the corner, the whispers, these are known as hypnagogic, or hypnopompic hallucinations. Vivid, dream-like sensory experiences that occur at the boundaries of sleep. Because you are on the edge of the dream world of REM sleep, that world can leak into your waking perception. Your brain, trying to make sense of the terror and paralysis, does what it does best. It creates a narrative. It takes the raw data, the fear, the pressure, the darkness of your room, and it projects an external cause. It paints a figure in the shadows to explain the sense of a malevolent presence. It creates whispers to explain the ringing in your ears or the sound of your own frantic heartbeat. Neuroscientists studying this phenomenon have found that the part of the brain responsible for creating our sense of self in space, the temporal-parietal junction, can become hyperactive during an episode. This can lead to what are called out-body experiences, or, more commonly, the distinct feeling of another presence in the room. A shadow self that the brain projects into the space around you. So every single element of your demonic visitation has a clear, logical, and biological root. The paralysis is REM atonia. The suffocation is respiratory suppression. The shadow is a hypnagogic hallucination. The whispers are auditory hallucinations. The fear is a natural panic response to being awakened, unable to move. It is not a demon. It is a glitch in the complex machinery of sleep, a temporary disintegration of mind and body. Why does it happen? The exact causes are still being studied, and that is our historians are still debating for the modern era. Scientists are still not 100% certain what triggers it. However, they have identified strong correlations. It's more likely to happen if your sleep schedule is disrupted, if you are suffering from sleep deprivation, or if you are under significant stress or anxiety. Certain mental health conditions can also make it more common, and for some people, there seems to be a genetic predisposition. It's also surprisingly common. Studies suggest that somewhere between 8% and 50% of the population will experience it at least once in their lives. Though the numbers vary wildly depending on the study. For most, it's a single, terrifying, but isolated event. For a smaller percentage, it can become a chronic and deeply distressing problem. Stripped of the supernatural explanation, the experience is no less terrifying in the moment. But the aftermath is profoundly different. When you wake up screaming in a modern bedroom, your partner or family member might be frightened, but they won't call the priest. You can go online and read articles about sleep paralysis. You can find forums where thousands of people describe the exact same experience. You can see a doctor who will reassure you that you are not losing your mind and that what you experienced has a name and a scientific explanation. The terror is validated, but it is not weaponized. The experience is medicalized, not moralized. You are not a sinner. You are a patient. You are not a witch. You are someone who had a Paralyzed episode. The story changes from one of guilt and damnation to one of biology and reassurance. And in that shift of narrative lies the difference between a life condemned and a life that can go on. The story of the Incubus, which you were forced to inhabit, was the specific explanation your medieval European world provided for your terror. It was a story of Christian theology, of sin, and of a cosmic battle between good and evil. But the underlying experience, waking up paralyzed, feeling a malevolent presence, and being crushed or suffocated, is not unique to that time or place. It is a universal human experience, and almost every culture throughout history has created its own myth, its own name, for the shadow in the bedroom. Let's take a quiet walk through the folklore of the world and see what other stories have been woven around this terrifying glitch in the machinery of sleep. Long before the Christian Incubus, the ancient Romans had a similar belief. They spoke of Incubus, a spirit that would press down upon sleepers. But they also had a belief in supernatural beings associated with the household, the Loris and Penates. If these household gods were offended, they could cause all sorts of mischief, including tormenting the family in their sleep. It was less about sin, and more about failing to observe the proper rituals. In Scandinavia, the story took the form of the mare. This is the origin of our modern English word nightmare. The mare was a supernatural creature, often a woman who had been cursed, who could travel in spirit form. She would sit on the chests of sleepers, giving them bad dreams and trying to suffocate them. The belief was so strong that people would use charms to ward her off, such as placing a scythe by the bed or leaving their shoes by the door with the toes pointing outwards to confuse her. Travel to Newfoundland, Canada, and you won't hear about a mare, but you will hear about the old hag. The folklore is remarkably similar. The old hag is a witch or malevolent spirit who comes in the night and sits on a person's chest, leaving them paralyzed and breathless. The experience is so common there that it's often just called being hag-ridden. Many older people in Newfoundland can describe a classic sleep paralysis episode and will simply, they met a minus factory, call it the old hag. In Japan, the phenomenon is known as kaneshibari, which literally translates to be bound or fastened with metal. The description is identical, waking up completely paralyzed, aware but unable to move or speak. Traditionally, it was believed to be the work of vengeful spirits, or sometimes a trick played by a kitsune, a mythical folk spirit. Modern Japanese culture, however, has largely embraced the scientific explanation, and the term kaneshibari is now used almost interchangeably with the medical term for sleep paralysis. In Turkish culture, the entity is the K-Arabazan, or the dog presser. It's a spirit that attacks people in their sleep, pressing on their chest and stealing their breath. To stop it, it was said you had to challenge the spirit and read a prayer from the Quran aloud, a difficult task when you are unable to speak. In Brazil, the folklore speaks of the pisadeira, which means the treader or the stepper. She is described as a terrifying crone with long fingernails who lives on the rooftops. She comes at night and walks on the chests of people who have gone to sleep on a full stomach while lying on their backs. The advice to sleep on your side to avoid her is a fascinating piece of folk wisdom, as sleep paralysis is indeed more commonly reported by back-sleepers. In the southern United States, particularly within African American communities, A tradition passed down from Hoodoo and folk magic speaks of spirits or witches riding your back, which describes the sensation of paralysis and pressure. Even the alien abduction phenomenon, which became prominent in the 20th century, has been linked by some researchers and folklorists to sleep paralysis. The classic abduction narrative often includes waking up paralyzed, seeing strange figures that graze in the bedroom, feeling a sense of pressure, and experiencing lost time or vivid, dream-like sequences. It's a striking example of how the same core biological experience can be interpreted through the lens of the prevailing cultural anxieties. In the Middle Ages, it was demons. In the Space Age, it's extraterrestrials. The specifics of who or what is doing the pressing change from culture to culture. It can be a demon, a witch, a ghost, a goblin, an elf, or an alien. The explanation for why it is happening also changes. It could be because of sin, a curse, an offended spirit, sleeping in the wrong position, or being chosen for a cosmic experiment. The sheer variety of these stories is the subject of ongoing debate among folklorists and anthropologists. Does the core biological experience of sleep paralysis create these similar myths independently all over the world? Or did an ancient, primordial story, a proto-Minus myth, travel with human populations as they spread across the globe, adapting to local beliefs along the way? It is a fascinating question with no clear answer. What is clear is that for thousands of years, people everywhere have been waking up in the dead of night, frozen, terrified, and feeling a presence in the room. They have all struggled for a story, a name, a reason. They have all tried to make sense of the same frightening, internal chaos. You are just one of a billion voices in a timeless, global chorus of fear. And so, we stand at the end of our journey, looking at two very different worlds, two very different stories, born from the very same human experience. In one world, yours, you are a witch, condemned by God and man, your fate sealed by a prison of belief. In another world, the modern one, you are a patient, a person who has experienced a common but frightening parasomnia. Your fate nothing more than a recommendation to manage your stress and get better sleep. The chasm between these two outcomes is immense, and it is built entirely on the power of a story. In your 15th century world, the story of the Incubus was a powerful and useful one for the society that told it. It reinforced the authority of the church, providing tangible proof of the reality of the spiritual war it claimed to be fighting. It gave priests like Father Michael and inquisitors like Brother Andreas a profound sense of purpose. It provided the community with a scapegoat, a simple explanation for complex misfortunes like sickness and bad luck. It was a story that created order out of chaos, certainty out of fear, but the price of that order was your life. The story served the community, but it destroyed you. Your body became a text, and everyone in your life was reading it, but they were reading it with a dictionary that only had one definition for your symptoms: demonic possession. The paralysis was not a neurological glitch. It was a demonic binding. The suffocation was not a quirk of REM-sleep respiration. It was a fiend stealing your breath. The shadow was not a HYP-IC hallucination. It was a creature from hell. There were no other definitions available. The book of knowledge was closed. In the modern world, the story of sleep paralysis is also a powerful and useful one. It is a story of science, of reason, of demystification. It takes the terrifying and makes it understandable. It strips the supernatural of its power, replacing it with biology. This story serves the individual. It liberates the sufferer from guilt and shame. It tells them, you are not crazy, you are not evil, you are not alone. What is happening to you is a known phenomenon with a biological cause. It offers not condemnation, but comfort, not a prayer, but a prescription. The transition from one story to the other was not quick or easy. It was a long, slow, and often painful process that took centuries. It required the rise of scientific inquiry, the invention of the microscope, the mapping of the brain, the study of sleep. It required a fundamental shift in how we see the world. A move from a world governed by unseen spiritual forces to a world governed by observable natural laws. But has the old story vanished completely? Not at all. The debate between belief and science is not a historical event that ended long ago. It is an ongoing conversation. Even today, for some people, a deeply spiritual or religious explanation for an experience like sleep paralysis can be more comforting and meaningful than a cold, clinical one. The language of demons and spirits has not disappeared. It has simply become one of a number of possible narratives one can choose from. The difference is the choice. You had no choice. So what is the final truth of the shadow in the room? Was it an incubus, or was it a neurological glitch? The question itself is perhaps a trap. It assumes that there is only one true story. But as we have seen, the truth of the experience lies in the telling. The phenomenon itself is just raw, terrifying sensation. The paralysis, the pressure, the presence. It is the story we wrap around those sensations that gives it meaning. The story you were forced to live was one of guilt, sin, and damnation. It was a story that turned your body into a prison and your mind into a traitor. The modern story is one of biology, psychology, and reassurance. It is a story that can turn a terrifying experience into a manageable condition. The shadow in the room has not changed. It has been visiting us in our beds since we first began to dream. But we have changed, and our ability to tell a different story about it, a story of science and empathy rather than fear and condemnation, is perhaps one of the most profound and hopeful journeys our species has ever taken. It is a quiet testament to the slow, painstaking process of exchanging a prison of belief for the freedom of understanding. And now, the story of that shadow, of that fear, can begin to soften, to fade, just as the memory of a dream dissolves in the morning light. You can allow these thoughts, these images, to drift away from you now. There is nothing more to analyze, nothing more to understand. The journey is complete, and all that is left is the quiet, peaceful space that remains. You can feel a sense of release, a gentle letting go, as if a great weight has been lifted, not just from the chest of the girl in our story, but from your own mind as you rest here. The darkness in your room is no longer a place of fear. It is a soft, welcoming blanket, a safe harbor. The only presence here is one of calm, of stillness. You are safe. You are comfortable. And you are drifting now. Drifting on a quiet, gentle current, towards a deep and truly restorative sleep. Each breath you take is slower now, deeper, carrying you further and further away from the shores of wakefulness and into the peaceful ocean of dreams. The final word has been whispered. If your mind is still gently stirring, you're welcome to drift into another of my stories. If not, I wish you a deep and peaceful slumber. Good night.